The first time the radio crackled my name, I thought someone was joking. But there was no one in the room with me. Just the low hum of the base station, the smell of hot dust stuck in old filters, and that strange feeling that something far away had just noticed I existed. Kashif, do not go there. The voice broke in and out, like it was traveling through broken wires buried under sand. I froze. Then the radio went dead. For a few seconds, I didn't move. I just stared at the equipment in front of me, waiting for someone to laugh, waiting for my supervisor to say it was a test. Nothing. Only static. That was the moment I should have quit the job. But I didn't know what there meant yet. And that was the problem. They called me in the morning before sunrise. A military maintenance office, no logo, no friendly voice. Just a direct order, report immediately. When I arrived, the room already felt wrong. Too clean, too quiet, like even sound had been told to leave. A man in a gray uniform slid a file across the table. No greeting. No explanation. Only one sentence. You're going to Karen Desert Relay Station 7. I looked up. I think you gave me the wrong file, I said. That station was shut down years ago. He didn't blink. It still sends signals. That was the first open loop in my mind. How does a dead station send anything? They showed me the data next. Screens filled with signal logs. At first it looked like random noise, but then I saw patterns. Bursts every night at 3:13 a.m. Always the same frequency. Always the same distortion. And sometimes voices. Not clear voices. More like someone trying to speak through wet cloth. One technician pointed at the screen. Listen. They played an audio file. At first it was static. Then something close to breathing. Then my name. I stepped back from the speaker without realizing it. The man in uniform finally spoke again. We traced the signal. It comes from inside the old relay station. A pause. We don't know why it's active. Another pause. And we don't know who is inside it. That was the second open loop. If no one was there, who was calling me? I should have refused. But jobs like mine don't give you that option. I fix communication systems in extreme environments, deserts, mountains, dead zones where signals go to die. But Karen Station 7 was different. Even the older workers avoided it. One of the engineers leaned closer before I left the office. Just don't stay after sunset, he said quietly. Why? I asked. He didn't answer. He just looked at me like I already knew. That was the third open loop. What happens after sunset? They gave me a transport truck. No escort. No backup team. Just me, a box of tools, and a sealed envelope marked emergency use only. The drive into the desert felt endless. At first there was road, then less road, then nothing but cracked earth stretching into heat waves. The further I went, the quieter the radio got. Even normal channels stopped working, as if the desert was swallowing sound. At one point I tried contacting base. Only static answered. But under the static, I swear I heard something. A whisper. Kashif. I turned the radio off. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to hear a signal. By late afternoon, I saw it. A shape rising from the sand. At first, I thought it was a mirage. Then it became solid. Karen Relay Station 7. A concrete tower half buried in desert dust, wires hanging like dried veins, satellite dishes frozen in strange angles. No movement. No birds. Not even wind near it. The truck stopped automatically, like it didn't want to go closer. I stepped out. The air felt heavier. Not hot, just wrong, like the desert was holding its breath. The gate was open. That was the first real sign something was off. A military station in a restricted zone should never have an open gate. I walked in slowly. Each step made soft crunching sounds in the sand-covered concrete. Inside, everything looked maintained. Too maintained. Lights were on. Fans were running. Screens glowed with green and blue data streams. But there was no one. No guards. No engineers. No sign of evacuation. Just an active station that had been officially dead for years. That was when my stomach tightened, because something impossible was happening. Either the reports were wrong, or I wasn't the first person sent here. I checked the main control room first. The air smelled like burnt metal and old paper. On the desk, I found a clipboard. Fresh ink. Recent notes. My fingers hesitated before touching it. The last entry made my skin go cold. Day unknown. Still hearing response at 3:13 a.m. It knows our names now. Below it was a list. Names of previous technicians. Some crossed out. Some not. And at the bottom of the page, my name was already written. But my arrival date was blank. That was the fourth open loop. How long had they expected me? A loud beep broke the silence. I flinched. A monitor turned on by itself. A live feed. Desert static. Then a voice came through the speaker. Calm. Soft. Too close. Maintenance worker Kashif has arrived. I stepped back. My chest tightened. I hadn't reported my arrival to anyone yet. The voice continued. You are late. I turned off the monitor immediately, but the screen turned itself back on. This time it showed something else. A camera feed from inside the station. But I was not behind the camera. Someone else was watching me. I moved fast after that. Checked every room. Storage, server halls, power room. All functional. All active. No signs of decay. But there were footprints everywhere. Old ones. Fresh ones. Overlapping. Like people had been walking in circles for years without leaving. In the power room, I found something worse. A generator log. Continuous operation for 1,842 days. That's almost 5 years. But the station had been shut down for over a decade. So who kept it running? And why? The sun began to fall. That's when I remembered the engineer's warning. Don't stay after sunset. The light outside turned orange, then red, then slowly faded into a deep blue. And the station changed with it. Not physically, but something in the sound. The hum of machines became rhythmic, like breathing, slow, patient, waiting. I checked my watch. 7:42 p.m. Then the radio on my belt turned itself on. No static this time. Only one sentence. Kashif, you are inside now. I backed toward the exit. But when I turned around, the gate was gone. Just a concrete wall. No door. No opening. Only sealed structure. My breath got heavier. I walked faster, then ran. Every exit I knew led me back to the same hallway. Same flickering lights. Same humming machines. Same impossible silence. That was the moment I understood the final truth forming in my mind. The station wasn't a place. It was something else. Something that only existed when you were inside it. And it didn't plan to let me leave. From deep inside the walls, the speakers crackled again. But this time, not my name. Something worse. All the names from the clipboard, one by one, whispered slowly, like a roll call. Then a pause. And finally, my name again. Closer this time. Not through speakers, but from behind me. I turned slowly and saw the control room monitor glowing in the dark. A live feed, but now it showed something new. Me, sitting at a desk, writing in a logbook, smiling slightly, even though I was standing right there. The screen flickered, and the version of me on the monitor looked up, straight at me, and mouthed something I couldn't hear. Then the station lights dimmed, and somewhere deep in the structure, something started answering back to the signal I hadn't sent yet. The gate was already open. That was the first thing that made my chest tighten. I remember stopping right there, one hand still on the truck door, the desert wind pushing sand across my boots like it was trying to erase my footprints before I even made them. Because a station like this, it should not be open. Not after 10 years. Not after shutdown orders signed and sealed and buried in government files. But the gate wasn't just open. It was swinging slightly, like someone had walked through it only moments ago. I didn't see any tracks in the sand. That was the second strange thing. No footprints, no tire marks, nothing. Just smooth, untouched desert leading into a place that was supposed to be dead. I swallowed and stepped forward anyway. That was my mistake, or maybe my only choice. Inside the compound, the air changed immediately. Not temperature, not wind, something deeper. The silence became thicker, like the desert itself had followed me inside and closed the world behind me. I looked back once. The road I came from was still there, but it felt further away than it should have. Like distance was bending. I told myself it was stress, long drive, heat, fatigue. But my body didn't believe me. My body already wanted to leave. The main building stood ahead of me. Concrete walls, faded military paint, broken antennas frozen like bent fingers pointing at nothing. And yet, the lights inside were on. Bright, clean, too clean. I remember actually laughing under my breath. A dry, confused sound. Power is still running, I whispered. That should have been impossible. A decommissioned station doesn't just stay alive, unless someone is feeding it. But there was no fuel convoy, no maintenance crew, no supply logs. Only silence, and electricity where there should have been decay. The front door opened when I pushed it. No resistance, no luck, no warning. It slid inward like it had been waiting for me. Inside, the air smelled like metal and something else. Old paper mixed with something burnt. I stepped into the hallway. My boots echoed, too loudly, as if the building wanted me to know I was not alone in the sound. On the wall, I saw something that made me pause. A calendar, still updated. The last marked date was only 3 days ago. My fingers went cold. I checked the timestamp twice. No mistake. Someone had been here recently. Very recently. But the official record said nobody had entered this station in over a decade. So which was wrong? The records, or the silence around me? That was the first real crack in my confidence. I moved deeper. Every step felt like I was walking into a place that was aware of me. Not alive. Not exactly. But aware. The corridor lights flickered once when I passed. Not random. Timed. Like it was reacting. I stopped walking. The flicker stopped. I walked again. The lights followed me. That's when I understood something I didn't want to believe. The station wasn't just powered. It was responding. The control room door was slightly open. That alone made my stomach twist. I pushed it slowly. Inside, everything was running. Monitors glowing. Systems active. Fans spinning. Data scrolling across screens like the station had never been shut down at all. But there was no operator. No chair movement. No voices. Just machines working perfectly without human input. I stepped closer to the main console. My reflection appeared in the dark screen. Tired eyes, dusty face, confused expression. Normal, until I noticed something behind my reflection. A second silhouette, standing just a little too far to the left. I spun around immediately. Empty room. Only machines. No one there. But my reflection didn't move for a second after I did. That delay felt wrong. Like the image had to decide whether to obey me. Then the radio on the desk turned on by itself. No button pressed. No signal request. Just sudden activation. Static filled the room first. Then a voice came through. Soft. Calm. Familiar in a way I couldn't explain. Technician has arrived. I froze. No one had reported my arrival yet. I hadn't even confirmed my presence. My throat went dry. I leaned closer to the radio. Who is this? I asked quietly. No answer. Only breathing. Not mechanical. Not distorted. Human breathing. Right inside the speaker. That was when I stepped back. Slowly. Carefully. Because something about that breathing felt like it wasn't coming from the device anymore. It felt like it was coming from the room. I checked the logs next. My hands were shaking now, but I forced myself to look. The system records were active, continuous, unbroken, as if someone had been working here every day. Lines of maintenance reports filled the screen. Some recent, some older, all signed. No, not signed. Attributed. Names appeared without input. Crew members listed in roles that should have been empty. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop completely. A file labeled, Current Staff Assignment. I opened it. Only one name was listed. Mine. Assigned role, Maintenance Lead, Car and Relay Station 7. Start date unknown. End date not recorded. My pulse started hammering in my ears. I stepped away from the screen. Slowly, because the worst part wasn't the file. It was the assumption behind it. The station already believed I belonged here. A sudden noise came from the hallway. Metal scraping. Soft. Slow. Like something dragging itself across concrete. I turned toward the sound. Nothing. Then again. Scrape. Closer. I grabbed my flashlight and moved toward the corridor. Each step felt heavier. Not physically. Emotionally. Like the building was adding weight to my thoughts. The sound stopped right outside the control room. I held my breath. The door behind me clicked shut. I didn't touch it. I swear I didn't. I spun around. Locked. The control room door was now sealed. No handle movement. No response. Just a solid barrier. My chest tightened. I rushed to the keypad. Entered the override code. Denied. Again. Denied. Again. Denied. Then the intercom crackled. Not the radio this time. The building itself. And it said only one sentence. You have already started your shift. That line didn't make sense at first. Then it did. And I hated that my mind understood it so quickly. Because if I had started, then I was already inside the system. Not visiting it, not inspecting it, but becoming part of it. The lights dimmed suddenly, just for a second, then returned brighter than before. Too bright, almost surgical. The monitors all shifted at once, every screen showing the same thing. The hallway outside, empty, except it wasn't empty anymore. A chair had appeared, right in the center of the corridor, facing my direction. That was new. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I leaned closer to the glass window, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then the chair moved slightly, just a few centimeters, like someone had sat in it for a moment and stood up again. But there was still no one there, at least not visible. A soft sound came from behind me. Paper turning. I froze, slowly turned. The clipboard on the desk had flipped pages on its own. Fresh entry added. Timestamp current moment. Status update. New technician is adapting. Below it, another line appeared while I was watching. That's when my breathing stopped for a second, because it wrote itself in real time. Kashif is now inside Station 7. I backed away instantly. My heel hit something. I turned. A second chair had appeared behind me, facing the monitors, as if it had always been there, as if I had simply not noticed it before. And in that chair, there was warmth, not visible, but felt, like someone had just stood up from it seconds ago. The radio hissed again, this time louder, closer, almost inside my head. And then the voice returned, the same calm tone, but different now, not distant, not distorted, right beside me. You are not alone in the station. I slowly turned my head. No one there, but the air next to my ear felt slightly warmer, like someone had just spoken directly into it. The voice continued. You were never meant to be alone. The monitors flickered. Every screen switched to a live feed of the entire station. Every hallway, every room, empty, except mine. Always mine. Always showing me, watching me. And then I saw something that made everything worse. In the corner of one screen, a reflection, standing behind me. But when I turned this time, I didn't see it. Not in the room, only on the screen. Still standing there, still watching. And slowly, it lifted its hand, not waving, not greeting, just pointing toward the deeper part of the station, as if telling me where to go next, as if my first mistake was not arriving, but hesitating to continue deeper inside. 3:13 a.m. That's the exact moment everything changed. I know because I was staring at the clock when it happened. Not blinking, not moving, just watching the seconds crawl like something was dragging time through mud. 3:12 m. 3:13 m. And then the radio came alive. No warning, no static buildup. Just a sudden breath inside the speaker, right next to my ear. I froze, because that breath didn't sound electronic. It sounded close, too close, like someone standing in the same room, trying not to be noticed. Then the voice came. Kashif. My name. Broken. Stretched. Like it was being pulled through metal wires and sand at the same time. I stepped back instantly, knocking my chair. It scraped the floor too loudly. Too real. My heartbeat jumped into my throat. I whispered, "Who is this?" Silence answered first. Then the radio replied again. Kashif. Same voice, but slower now. Softer, like it was learning how to speak again. I turned the volume down. The voice got louder. That's when my hands went cold. Because that shouldn't be possible. I should explain something. At Station 7, the radio system is isolated. No external feed. No satellite link active. No civilian frequency access. It's supposed to be a dead system. But right now, it was speaking, and it knew my name. I checked the console immediately. My fingers were shaking, but I forced them to move. System logs showed nothing unusual. No incoming signal. No transmission source. Just silence. That made it worse, because I was hearing something that officially did not exist. Then the speaker whispered again. Kashif, don't look behind you. I stopped breathing. For a full second, I didn't move at all. My eyes locked on the dark corner of the room. My mind screamed at me to turn. But I didn't, because something in that voice felt like it already knew what I would see. The radio clicked. Then another sound came through. Not words this time. A distortion, like multiple voices layered on top of each other. Some high, some low, some almost human. And then, my name again. But not one voice. Many. Kashif, Kashif, Kashif. It wasn't calling me anymore. It was surrounding me. I turned the radio off. Hard switch. Complete shutdown. Silence returned instantly. Too instantly. That silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like waiting. Like something holding its breath, because it didn't want to miss what I would do next. I stood up, walked to the control panel, forced myself to think logically. Signal interference, faulty wiring, old equipment glitch. Anything normal. Anything human. But then the screen lit up by itself. No input. No command. Just power. And a waveform appeared. A clean signal line. Perfect. Structured. Not random noise. A real transmission. My throat tightened, because the system was showing me what I couldn't hear anymore. The voice was still there. It just changed channels. Then the waveform shifted. It formed something I didn't understand at first. Repeating patterns. Then numbers. Then letters. And finally, my name, written across the screen like a diagnosis. I stepped back slowly. My reflection in the glass looked wrong again. Too still. Too focused. Like it was listening harder than I was. Then the radio turned itself back on, even though I had shut it down completely. And this time, the voice wasn't far away. It was right inside the room. Not through the speaker, but in the air. Kashif, you are listening now. I spun around. Empty room. But the temperature dropped slightly behind me, like someone had just stepped closer. I backed toward the door. My hand reached for the handle, but the lock clicked by itself. I froze. Then another click. Then another, like multiple locks engaging from the other side. I pulled hard. Nothing. The door didn't move. Not even a vibration. That's when I realized something simple. I wasn't being locked in. I was being held. The lights flickered once, then stabilized. And in that flicker, I saw something on the wall. A shadow. Not mine. Too tall. Too still. Standing near the control desk. I turned instantly. Nothing there. But the shadow remained on the wall. Wrong direction. Wrong shape. And slowly, it raised its head, as if it was looking at the screen. Not at me. At the signal. The radio voice returned again. Calmer now. Almost patient. You came when we called you. My mouth went dry. I didn't come for you, I said quietly. I was assigned here. A pause. Then the voice replied. That is the same thing. That line hit harder than I expected, because it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a fact, something already decided long before I arrived. The monitor changed again, this time showing a live feed of the station hallway. But I recognized it immediately. I was standing in the frame, except I was. Not physically, but the image showed me anyway. Walking slowly down the corridor, stopping, turning toward the camera, and speaking. But I wasn't moving in real life. I was still in the control room, watching myself do something I hadn't done yet. My breath hitched, because the feed wasn't recording. It was predicting. Then the voice returned. Closer, lower, almost like it was inside the walls now. Kashif, you are repeating. I frowned. What does that mean? The screen flickered again, now showing two versions of me. One standing still, one walking, both in different places in the station. Both real, both current, but only one was happening to me. The other was happening somewhere else, or already had, or was going to. Time didn't feel straight anymore. It felt stacked. A sudden memory flashed in my mind. The clipboard from earlier, the names, the missing logs, the feeling that others had been here before me. Then I understood something I didn't want to understand. They weren't just missing. They were still here, just not in the way I expected. The radio crackled violently, louder than before, almost screaming, then suddenly stopped. And in the silence that followed, I heard footsteps outside the control room. Slow, measuring, deliberate. I stepped closer to the door, held my breath. The footsteps stopped right outside. No movement, no sound, just presence, heavy enough to feel through metal. Then a soft knock. One time, not urgent, not aggressive, just patient, like it already knew I would open it. I didn't move. The knock came again. Same rhythm, same calmness, and then the voice returned. Not from the radio this time, from the other side of the door. Kashif, my name, but now it sounded real, physical, like someone standing right there saying it through the metal. I stepped back slowly. My heel hit the chair behind me. It shifted slightly, as if something invisible had just sat back down. The monitor suddenly glitched. A new message appeared across all screens at once. 3:13 a.m. cycle complete. I looked at the clock. Still 3:13 a.m. Impossible, but true. The seconds weren't moving forward anymore. They were looping, repeating, holding me inside a single minute that refused to end. Then the voice spoke one last time. Soft, almost gentle. You answered. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I had actually spoken to it, or if I had been answering it all along without knowing. The names weren't supposed to be there. That's what hit me first. My hands were still shaking from the last transmission when I opened the archive terminal again. I told myself I was just checking system history, just confirming a glitch. But the moment the screen loaded, I knew I made a mistake. Because the files were not old. They were active, live, updating, at 3:13 a.m. Again, the first folder was labeled simple. Station personnel log. Nothing strange at first glance. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped a little. The list wasn't short. It wasn't even empty like it should have been. It was long. Too long for a station that had been shut down for over a decade. I scrolled slowly. Names kept appearing, one after another. Technicians, engineers, security staff. Some I didn't recognize. But then I saw something that made my breath stop completely. A line that read, Field Technician Kashif R. My name. Again. But this time, it wasn't a single entry. There were multiple versions of it. Different dates. Different roles. Different shifts. My fingers froze over the mouse. Because I hadn't been here before. I was sure of it. And yet, the system acted like I had always been here. I leaned closer to the screen. The log continued updating as I watched. New entries appeared in real time. Shift completed. Shift ongoing. Shift not recorded. All tied to different versions of the same person. Me. That was the first open loop in my mind. How many times had I been here? And why didn't I remember any of it? A soft beep interrupted the silence. A new file unlocked itself. No password input. No command. Just opening on its own. The title made my skin tight. Incident Reports, Unresolved Personnel Disappearances. My cursor hovered over it for a second too long. Then I clicked. The first report loaded. Date unknown. Time 03:13 a.m. That number again. Always that number. The report was short. Too short for something official. Technician assigned to Relay Station 7 failed to respond after midnight check-in. System remains active. No signs of evacuation. All equipment functioning. Personnel not found. That last line didn't sit right. Not found. Not missing. Not dead. Just not found. Like they had been removed from the system entirely. I scrolled down. Second report. Same structure. Same time. Same pattern. Engineer assigned to Relay Station 7 reported hearing personal name called through internal radio channels. Investigation suspended. Personnel not located during follow-up. My throat went dry. The reports weren't describing accidents. They were describing disappearances that didn't leave evidence. No bodies. No traces. Like people had been erased mid-task. I kept scrolling. Third report. Fourth. Fifth. All identical in structure. But different names. Different faces. Different jobs. Same outcome. Not found. Not found. Not found. And always 3:13 a.m. That number wasn't random. It was a trigger. Or a moment. Or something worse. A cycle. Then I saw something that made me lean back slowly from the screen. A folder that wasn't there before. It appeared right in front of the list. As if the system was waiting for me to notice it. Synchronization logs, active operator. My cursor hovered again. My hand didn't feel like mine anymore. I clicked. The screen changed. A video file loaded. No title, just playback. The image was grainy at first, then clear. It showed the control room. My control room. But I wasn't alone. There was someone sitting at the desk, back turned to the camera, wearing the same uniform I was wearing. Same posture, same tired stillness. But it wasn't me. At least, I didn't think it was me. The timestamp in the corner read, 03:13 a.m. I swallowed hard, because I was standing in that same room right now. But the recording showed someone already there. The figure in the video slowly turned. My breath stopped. It was my face. Same eyes, same expression, but wrong somehow. Too calm, like it had already accepted something I hadn't understood yet. It looked directly into the camera and spoke, but the audio was distorted, broken. Still, I caught pieces. You will forget you were ever knew. Then the video cut. Black screen. Then a new file auto-opened. This one was different. It wasn't a report. It was a list, but not of events, of rotations, shift cycles. Each line was labeled, operator instance, and under it names. My name repeated over and over, each one with different timestamps, different durations. Some lasted hours, some lasted days, some had no end date at all. I stared at it, trying to force logic into something that refused to be logical. Then I saw the pattern. Every entry ended the same way. Integration complete, or termination not confirmed, or system reassigned operator. My stomach turned, because none of those sounded like normal job logs. They sounded like something being absorbed. A sudden sound broke my focus. Footsteps. Outside the room again. Slow. Measuring. I didn't move this time. I just listened. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. No knock this time. Just silence. Heavy silence. Then the radio on the desk clicked on by itself again. And a voice came through. Not distorted. Clear. Too clear. You are reading the correct file. My heart jumped. I whispered, "Who are you?" A pause. Then the answer came. "You are." That didn't make sense. Not at first. But something about the tone felt like it wasn't trying to confuse me. It was stating something obvious. Something I hadn't accepted yet. The monitor flickered again. The list changed. Now it showed something else. A diagram. The station layout. But not as a map. As a loop. Every corridor connected back into itself. Every room folding into another version of the same room. And in the center, the control room, where I was standing, watching myself watch myself. I felt my balance shift slightly, like the room had tilted, but nothing physically changed. Only perception, only certainty. Then a new file opened without command. First arrival record. My fingers froze before I even read it. The screen loaded slowly, like it didn't want me to see it too fast. Then the text appeared. Subject Kashif are assigned to Station 7. Status, returning operator. I frowned hard. Returning. That word stuck. Then more text appeared. Memory suppression active. My chest tightened. I whispered, "No, that's not possible." But the system didn't argue. It just continued. Previous cycles, 4 confirmed, 2 incomplete, 1 ongoing. My vision blurred slightly, because now the question wasn't just what was happening. It was how many times it had already happened before I realized. The footsteps outside returned, closer now, but slower, like whoever it was had time. Plenty of time. The radio whispered again. This is your fifth cycle. I stepped back from the desk. No, I said quietly, I just arrived. A pause. Then the voice replied. You always say that first. That line hit differently, because it didn't sound like an accusation. It sounded like memory. The monitor shifted again, now showing a hallway feed. But instead of empty corridors, there were faint silhouettes, standing still, watching, not moving, not approaching, just present, like echoes stuck in the structure of the building. And then I recognized something terrifying. One of them was wearing my uniform, but older, still, watching me. The radio clicked one final time. The voice softened, almost tired. Your shift is not new. It is continued. Then a pause, a longer one, and the final line came through like a warning I couldn't avoid anymore. You will remember when the loop completes again. The screen went dark, but before it did, I saw something reflected in it. Not the room, not me, but a version of me standing behind the glass, watching me, waiting for me to finish something I hadn't started, but somehow already ended. And for the first time, I started wondering if I was reading records, or becoming one. The desert stopped answering me first. Not slowly, not gradually, just all at once. One moment there was wind scratching against the station walls, sand tapping the glass like restless fingers. And the next moment, nothing, no wind, no movement, no sound at all. Even my own breathing felt too loud inside my head. That's when I knew something had changed again. Not outside, inside. I stood near the control room window, staring at the desert beyond the fence. It looked wrong now. Not empty, not quiet, but paused, like someone had pressed a stop button on the world and forgotten to release it. The sand didn't move. The heat shimmer didn't ripple. Even the horizon felt frozen in place. I pressed my hand against the glass. Cold. Too cold for a desert station. That was the first sign I wasn't in the same reality anymore. The radio on the desk wasn't even on, but I heard it anyway. Inside my head, a faint static whisper, like something trying to tune itself into my thoughts. I stepped back fast. No, I said quietly, not again. But the sound didn't stop. It grew clearer, not louder, clearer, like it was moving closer to the part of my mind that understood language. Then it spoke. Kashif. I froze, because it didn't feel like I was hearing it. It felt like I was remembering it being said. I pressed my palms against my ears, hard, trying to block it out. But the voice didn't change. It wasn't outside anymore. It was layered under my thoughts, like another channel running parallel to my own mind. Then it repeated again. Kashif, you are still listening. My breath got stuck halfway. I whispered, I'm not listening. And the moment I said it, the station lights flickered. Every single one. Like the building had heard me think. I ran to the console, checked the systems. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Logs were updating. Signals were stable. But there was no external transmission source. That's when I realized something simple but terrifying. The signal wasn't coming into the station anymore. It was coming from inside it. From me. A soft pressure built behind my eyes. Like a headache, but deeper, heavier, not pain exactly. More like something knocking from inside my skull, trying to get my attention politely. I closed my eyes for a second. Bad mistake. Because when I did, I saw the station. Not physically. In my mind. Every hallway. Every room. Perfectly mapped. And I wasn't outside it. I was inside it again. Walking. I opened my eyes fast. Gasping. My hand slammed against the desk for balance. No, no, no. But the vision didn't leave. It just paused. Waiting. Like it knew I would look again. That was the second open loop. If I closed my eyes, I saw it. If I opened them, I still felt it. There was no escape between the two states. The radio voice returned. Calm. Closer. Almost gentle. You are not receiving the signal anymore. I whispered, then what is it? A pause. Then, you are generating it. My stomach dropped. I laughed once. Short. Broken. That's impossible. But even as I said it, I felt something shift behind my thoughts. Like a switch had already been turned. The station lights dimmed again. Not flickering now. Dimming. Slowly. Like the entire building was going into sleep mode. But I was still awake. Too awake. And the silence outside the window deepened again. Not empty silence. Controlled silence. Like the desert was being told not to exist. I walked toward the exit. Fast. Too fast. My boots hit the floor harder than they should have. Each step echoed longer than it should have. The door was still there. But when I reached it, it felt further away than before. Like distance was stretching away from me. I reached for the handle. My hand stopped halfway. Because I heard something behind me. My own voice. Soft. Calm. Saying my name. Kashif. I turned instantly. Empty room. But the voice didn't stop. Now it was inside the walls. Inside the ceiling. Inside the floor beneath my feet. I backed away from the door. The desert outside the window was still frozen. Not moving. Not changing. But now I noticed something new. A faint reflection in the glass. Not mine. Not exactly. A version of me standing in the desert. Looking back at the station. From the outside. I stepped closer to the glass. The reflection didn't match me. It was watching me like I was the one inside. That was the moment my mind stopped trusting directions. Inside or outside didn't feel meaningful anymore. Only observation. Only presence. The radio clicked again. But this time there was no voice first. Only breathing. Right behind me. Slow. Steady. I didn't turn. Not immediately. Because I already knew something was wrong with turning too fast. I whispered, "What do you want?" And the answer came instantly. Not through sound. Through thought. You already gave it. That hit something deep. Because I didn't know what it was. But my body reacted like it did. The console screen suddenly changed. A live feed appeared. Not cameras. Not recordings. My memory. But wrong. I saw myself entering the station. But I also saw myself already inside it before that moment. Two timelines overlapping. Both real. both happening. One didn't lead to the other. They were happening at the same time. My head started spinning. Then the voice became clearer, stronger, not louder, just more certain. Kashif, you are the return signal. My throat went dry. What does that mean? A pause. Then the answer came like a memory being placed into my mind. You come back when the station calls you. I stepped back slowly. No, I came here for maintenance. Silence. Then the voice responded softly. That is what you remember. The desert outside, the window changed again. The horizon bent slightly, like reality had a seam, and something was pulling on it gently. I saw movement again. Not wind, not sand, but patterns, circles forming in the distance, like something was writing itself into the desert surface. I pressed my forehead against the glass, trying to focus, trying to stay grounded. But the voice inside my head spoke again. You cannot leave what you are part of. That line stayed longer than the others, like it wanted to settle in. I rushed back to the door again, forced myself to think logically. Power source, system glitch, psychological stress. Anything that didn't make this real. But when I reached the door, it was gone. Not locked, not sealed. Gone. Just a wall. No edges. No frame. No exit. I stumbled back. My breath broke. No, this is not possible. But the room didn't respond. It didn't need to. It already knew. The radio voice returned one final time. But now it wasn't separate from me. It felt like part of my own thinking. Soft, patient, almost comforting. You are not trapped inside Station 7. I swallowed hard. Then it continued. Station 7 is what remains when you stop trying to leave. My vision blurred slightly. The control room lights flickered. And for a moment, I didn't see the station anymore. I saw layers, countless versions of the same room. Stacked, repeated, infinite. And in each one, I was standing, listening. My knees weakened slightly, but I stayed standing. Barely, because something in me still wanted answers. Why me? I whispered. The voice answered immediately. No reason. That was worse, because it meant I wasn't chosen. I was reused. The desert outside finally changed again, but not back to normal. It expanded, endlessly, no horizon, just stretching emptiness in every direction, like the world had forgotten where to end. And in that endless silence, I felt it, not sound, not sight, a pull, like the signal wasn't calling my ears anymore. It was calling my existence. My last clear thought before everything shifted was simple. If the signal was coming from inside me, then leaving was no longer about doors. It was about whether I still existed outside the loop at all. And somewhere deep in that thought, the station answered back, softly, as if it had always been waiting for me to realize it. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was the one hearing the signal, or if I had become the place it was coming from. The first report came in at 3:13 a.m. Not from a person, from a place that no longer existed on any map. Weather Post 22. I remember staring at the screen, thinking it was just corrupted data. Because stations don't survive abandonment. Not in the Arctic. Not in minus 50 degrees. Not after 10 years of silence. But the numbers kept updating. Live. I was on night shift when it started. The meteorology center was almost empty, just the hum of servers and the soft blinking of red system lights. Coffee gone cold beside my hand. Rain tapping against the glass outside. Normal world stuff. Then my monitor flickered. Once, twice, then a new data feed opened by itself. No command input. No user request. Just a system waking up on its own. The label appeared. Arctic Station feed, WP22. I frowned. That code wasn't active anymore. It had been archived years ago. I clicked it anyway. And that's when I saw it. Temperature degrees C. Wind 12 km/8. Visibility low. Status operational. I leaned closer. My first thought was simple. False reading. Sensor glitch. Old looped data. But then I noticed something that made my stomach tight. The timestamp. It was current. Real time. I checked again. And again. It was updating every second. Live feed. From a station that had been abandoned since before I even joined the department. I called out to my supervisor through the glass wall. "Sir, can you check whether post 22 feed?" He didn't even look up at first. Just tired. Overworked. Then he did. And I saw his expression change immediately. That small shift. That quiet alertness that only comes when something breaks reality. WP22 is offline, he said. I nodded. I know, but it's reporting live data. That made him stand up. Slowly, like he didn't want to believe me too quickly. He walked over, looked at my screen, stayed silent for a long time. Then he said something I didn't expect. That station was buried. I blinked. Buried. He nodded once. After the polar collapse storms, ice swallowed the entire structure. No recovery team ever reached it. That was the first open loop. If it was buried, how was it transmitting? The feed changed again. A second window opened automatically. This one showed wind patterns, but not normal ones. Circular movements, like something was disturbing the air from underneath. Then another update came. This time audio. Static at first, then faint breathing. I pulled the headphones off instinctively, because it didn't sound like wind. It sounded like someone inside a sealed room, breathing slowly, carefully, alive. My supervisor took the keyboard, typed something fast, trying to cut the connection, but nothing responded. The system didn't reject commands. It ignored them, like we weren't operating it anymore. It was operating itself. Then the audio changed. A voice broke through the static. Not clear, not stable, but human enough to make my skin cold. "Control, do you read?" We froze, because no one should be speaking from WP22. No one could be speaking from WP22. The supervisor leaned closer to the mic. "This is Central Weather Control. Identify yourself." Silence. Then, "My name is Ellis." The name made him step back. I saw it in his face. Recognition. Fear. He whispered to me. That was the lead technician sent there 8 years ago. My throat went dry. If that was true, then we weren't listening to a live system. We were listening to something that shouldn't still be speaking. The feed shifted again, this time showing camera input. But it wasn't normal footage. It was white, empty, snowstorm static. Then shapes appeared inside it. Not clear, Just movement. Something standing too still, in a place that should be completely buried. I leaned forward unconsciously, trying to understand. Then I saw it. A structure, half visible under ice. Weather post 22. Still standing, but wrong. Tilted, like it had grown inside the ice, instead of being crushed by it. That was the second open loop. If it was buried, why did it still have power? The audio crackled again. Ellis's voice returned, but weaker now. Slower. Don't shut it down. The supervisor immediately grabbed the console. I'm terminating this feed. But before he could execute the command, the system displayed a warning. Not a normal warning. A message, typed in real time. Connection required. I frowned. Connection to what? I whispered. The answer came instantly. Observation continues through you. My stomach dropped, because that didn't sound like data transmission. That sounded like attention. The lights in the control room flickered once, then stabilized. But something felt different after that. Quieter, like the building itself was listening now. Not just the system. Everything. The supervisor stepped back slowly. This shouldn't be active, he said again. But his voice didn't sound confident anymore. It sounded uncertain, like the rules he trusted were starting to fail. Then the screen changed again, this time showing a log file. Personnel records. Names scrolling upward. I recognized the format. Standard deployment logs. But then I saw something that made my chest tight. Every technician assigned to WP-22 was still marked as active, even years after disappearance. Not dead, not removed, active, like they were still assigned to a job they never finished. My supervisor whispered, "That's impossible." But the system didn't care. It kept updating. The audio returned, now layered. Multiple voices under the same signal, all speaking at once. But one line came through clearly. "Why did you stop listening?" I stepped back. "I didn't stop anything," I said quietly. Then the voices responded together. "You always do." That hit something deep. Not fear. Confusion. Like I was being blamed for something I didn't remember doing. The camera feed suddenly zoomed in, closer to the buried station. Now I could see movement inside the structure. Not outside. Inside. Figures walking slowly under ice. Or through it. I couldn't tell anymore. They moved like they belonged there. Like the station wasn't trapped in ice, but existing inside it. My supervisor shut the lights off in frustration. But the screen stayed on, even in darkness. It didn't need power from the room anymore. That was the third open loop. Where was it drawing energy from? Then the voice changed again. This time calm, almost familiar. "Control station, you are receiving us correctly." My supervisor whispered, "We are not receiving anything." But the system responded immediately. "You are always receiving. You only notice when it calls your name." I froze, because I realized something simple. The feed had already named me without asking. It knew I was watching. It knew I understood it. That meant this wasn't just observation. It was recognition. The temperature in the room dropped slightly. Not enough to see breath, but enough to feel it. The monitor flickered again. A final image appeared. A corridor inside WP-22. But this time, someone was standing at the end of it, looking directly into the camera. And even through distortion, I recognized the face. Not clearly, but enough, because it looked like someone who had been waiting a very long time for us to finally look back. Then the voice came one last time. Soft, clear, too close. Now you see us. The screen went black, but the system feed didn't disconnect. It just stopped showing us what it was doing. And that was when I understood the worst part. We weren't looking at weather post 22 anymore. It was already looking back through us. The footprints shouldn't have been there. That was the first thing I noticed when the helicopter lowered us over the Arctic ice. White nothingness everywhere, except for a perfect trail circling weather post 22. Fresh, sharp, like someone had just walked there minutes before we arrived. But that wasn't possible. Nothing lives out here. Nothing survives out here. Still, the footprints were moving. Not literally, but they felt recent, like the ice hadn't had time to forget them. The wind hit us the moment the helicopter doors opened, cold enough to sting through my gear. The kind of cold that doesn't just touch skin, it pushes into thoughts. My team stepped out first. 3 of us. Search and recovery unit. Official mission. Confirm whether weather post 22 still exists physically. Unofficial feeling. Nobody wanted to be here. Not even the pilot. He didn't speak when we disembarked. Just lifted his hand once and flew away fast. Too fast. Like the Arctic itself had told him to leave. I looked around the horizon. Endless white. No landmarks. No sound except the low crack of shifting ice beneath us. Then I saw it again. The footprints. They circled the station perfectly. Not random. Not chaotic. Controlled. Like someone had walked around it again and again, waiting. I crouched down. The snow was fresh. Too fresh. No wind blur. No melting edges. One of my teammates, Harris, stepped beside me. "What kind of animal leaves prints like that?" he asked. I didn't answer, because I already knew. No animal walks in perfect loops. Not like this. We approached the station slowly. Weather post 22 stood ahead of us like a broken tooth in the ice. Half buried, half exposed, tilted slightly. The metal walls were frozen solid, but not collapsed. That was the first strange thing. Everything should have been crushed under the ice sheets years ago. But it wasn't crushed. It was preserved, like something was holding it in place, keeping it intact, or waiting for it to be used again. As we got closer, I noticed something worse. The footprints didn't stop at the entrance. They went inside, through the sealed metal door. I stopped walking. "So someone's already been here," Harris said. But his voice didn't sound confident. It sounded like he wanted it to be true. I shook my head slowly. "No, the door hasn't been opened in years." He frowned, then howled. A loud metallic creak cut him off. We all froze. The station door shifted slightly. Not open, not closed, just reacting, like it knew we were standing outside. We radioed command. No response, only static. The kind of static that doesn't sound like interference. It sounds like distance, like the signal is being swallowed before it reaches Earth. My third teammate, Olson, checked his device. "Comms are dead," he said quietly. Then he added something worse. "GPS is drifting." I looked at him. "Drifting how?" He hesitated. "Coordinates keep changing." That was the first open loop. How does a fixed location move? We decided to enter. Not because we wanted to, because standing outside felt worse. Like the longer we stayed there, the more the station was becoming aware of us. The door opened with pressure. Not resistance, not force, just acceptance. Like it had been waiting for this moment. Inside, the air changed immediately. Warmer. That shouldn't have been possible. Arctic stations are frozen inside even when active. But this one felt inhabited, like someone had recently been breathing in it. The hallway lights flickered on as we stepped in. One by one. Not all at once. Like the station was noticing us slowly, adjusting its awareness. Harris whispered, "This place should be dead." I nodded, but something about the word dead didn't feel correct anymore, because nothing here felt like it had stopped. It felt like it had paused. We followed the footprints deeper. They were still visible inside. Faint now, but present. They led down the corridor, past control rooms, past storage doors, always circling, never straight, always looping back toward the center of the station. Olson stopped suddenly. "Do you see that?" he asked. We turned. He pointed at the wall. Scratches, deep ones, not random. They formed words, but frozen mid-carving, like whoever wrote them stopped halfway through. I leaned closer. The words were almost readable. "Don't listen when it." Then it broke off, like the sentence had been interrupted by something it didn't want to finish. That was the second open loop. What happens when you listen? We reached the central hub. That's when everything stopped. The footprints ended right at the control room door. Not going inside, just stopping, like whoever walked here chose not to enter. Harris swallowed. So they were outside. I looked at the door. It was slightly open, just a crack, enough to see darkness inside, but not enough to see what was waiting. Then Olson's voice lowered. "What if they're still outside?" I didn't answer, because I suddenly felt something that made my chest tighten. We were standing exactly where the footprints stopped, like we had arrived at the same decision point. A soft sound came from inside the control room. Not movement, not footsteps. Breathing. Slow. Measured. Like someone had been waiting there a very long time without needing to move. Harris raised his rifle slightly. "Hello," he called. No response. Only breathing. But then something strange happened. The breath changed rhythm, like it had noticed his voice, and was now listening more carefully. Olson stepped back slightly. "This is wrong," he whispered. "Everything about this is wrong." Then the radio in his pack crackled, even though comms were dead. Static filled the room. Then a voice came through. Soft, calm, familiar in a way none of us liked. "Why did you come back?" We froze, because no one had spoken. Not us. Not command. Just the station. Harris whispered, "Who is this?" Silence. Then, "You already know." The control room door creaked again, this time fully open. We didn't move forward. We didn't move back. We just stared, because inside the room there were more footprints. Fresh, overlapping, circling the central console. Not going out. Not going in. Just moving endlessly around something we couldn't see. Olson stepped closer without thinking. "Someone's in there," he said. But I noticed something worse. The footprints didn't belong to one person. There were multiple sizes, multiple patterns, like more than one presence had been walking in circles for a very long time. Then the voice spoke again. But closer. Much closer. You are late. Harris aimed his rifle into the room. Nothing visible. Only darkness. But the breathing inside stopped. For the first time. Like it was waiting for our reaction. Olsen's flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then stayed on. And in that instant, we saw the console. The screens were still active, even after years of abandonment. Data scrolling, temperature logs, wind readings, all updating in real time, as if someone was still operating the station. Right now. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop completely. On the main screen, there was a live feed of us standing outside the control room. But that wasn't the worst part. The timestamp showed something impossible. It was recorded before we entered, before we arrived, before the helicopter even landed. We were already here, watching ourselves arrive later. That was the third open loop. How long had the station known we were coming? Harris took a step back. We need to leave, he said quickly. But the door behind us closed slowly. Not slammed. Not locked. Just closed. Like a decision had been made. Olsen rushed forward. Tried it. Locked. No mechanical failure. No override. Just final. The radio crackled again. And the voice returned one last time. Soft. Almost gentle. You followed the footprints. A pause. Then, they were always yours. The lights dimmed. The control room screen shifted. And for a brief second, we saw something moving inside the hallway behind us. Not approaching. Not attacking. Just walking in circles. Exactly like the footprints outside. And then I realized something I didn't want to accept. The footprints didn't belong to someone who came before us. They belonged to someone who never left. And somewhere in that endless loop of ice and silence, the station had already decided which set of footprints we were going to leave behind. The first thing that made no sense was the heat. Not outside. Inside. We stepped into Weather Post 22 expecting frozen silence, frozen metal, frozen death. Instead, the moment the door sealed behind us, I felt it. Warm air. Soft. Alive. Like the station was breathing on us. Harris stopped walking immediately. Is it heating? He asked. But his voice didn't sound relieved. It sounded wrong. Because nothing out here should have power. Nothing out here should have warmth. The corridor lights turned on one by one as we moved deeper. Not flickering. Not broken. Perfectly stable. Like someone had just checked in and activated the system minutes before we arrived. I ran my glove along the wall. Metal. Clean. Not frozen. Not cracked. Just maintained. Olsen frowned. This place has been buried for years, he said quietly. It should be ice inside. I nodded, but I didn't answer, because the air was already telling me something else. Something worse. This station was not abandoned. It was occupied. We followed the main hallway toward the central hub. The deeper we went, the warmer it became. At first, I thought it was imagination. Stress response. Cold shock reversal. But then I saw sweat forming under Harris's helmet strap. Olsen opened his collar. What the hell, he whispered. That's when the second open loop formed in my mind. How does a frozen Arctic station stay warm without fuel, without generators, without life support? We should have been freezing. Instead, it felt like walking inside a sealed room that someone had just left. Then we heard the radio. Soft, static first, then a voice. Not ours, not command. A man's voice. Calm, familiar in a way I couldn't place. Shift log, continuing temperature stable. I froze. Harris looked at me. Is that coming from your channel? I checked my radio. It was off. Still off. But the voice continued anyway. Crew member Ellis reporting. Systems operational. Olsen stepped back slightly. That name, he whispered. And I saw it in his eyes. Recognition. Fear. Because Ellis was supposed to be dead. Officially confirmed. Years ago. The radio crackled again. Another voice joined. Then another. Overlapping. Layering. Not random. Structured. Like a memory replaying itself incorrectly. Station holding steady. Power levels normal. No external contact. I pulled my headset off. But the voices didn't stop. They didn't need the device anymore. They were already inside the room. Inside the station. Inside us. We reached the control hub door. It was slightly open. Warm light spilled out. Not cold white emergency lighting. Warm yellow. Like a living space. Like a room someone actually lived in. Harris raised his rifle slightly. No way, he muttered. Olsen stepped closer first. Then stopped. Because inside, there were people. Not moving. Not reacting. But sitting. At consoles. At desks. Working. Slowly. Like they had never left their shift. Their uniforms were old. Faded. But intact. Their faces. I couldn't tell if they were real or not at first. Because they didn't look frozen. They didn't look dead. They looked paused. Like a video stopped mid-frame. One of them turned slightly. Just a fraction. Not fully. But enough. Enough for me to see his face. He smiled faintly. And whispered something. I couldn't hear it clearly. But the radio picked it up instantly. Welcome back. Harris stepped forward. Hey, he shouted. The man didn't react. He just kept typing. Slowly. Like nothing had interrupted him. Like we didn't exist. Then the warmth increased again. Noticeably. Like the station was reacting to our presence. Olsen wiped his forehead. This is impossible, he said again. But his voice had changed now. Less confident. More confused. Like reality was starting to slip out of his grip. I looked at the consoles. All active. All running live data. But one screen caught my attention. Weather logs. Updated every second. From outside. From the frozen storm. But the temperature outside was listed as plus 2 degrees C. I blinked hard. No, I whispered. Harris looked over. That's wrong. But the system didn't correct itself. It just kept updating. Then the radio spoke again. Closer this time. Almost like it was coming from inside the room itself. Why do you look surprised? I spun toward the source. Nothing. But the seated crew didn't stop working. They didn't even look at us. Like we were not part of their environment. Like we were outside the system they were in. Olsen whispered, they're not reacting. I nodded slowly. They're not supposed to. That was the third open loop. If they were alive, why weren't they acknowledging us? And if they were alive, Why were they still working? Then I noticed something worse. A clack on the wall. Digital. Frozen at first glance. But it wasn't frozen. It was counting. Just not forward. It was looping. 3:13 a.m. Reset. 3:13 a.m. Reset. Over and over again. I felt my chest tighten. That number again. Always that number. Harris walked closer to one of the operators. "Hey, can you hear me?" The man didn't respond, but his fingers stopped typing. Slowly, very slowly, then resumed. But the rhythm changed. Slightly off, like he had acknowledged something, but chose not to act on it. Harris turned back to us. "They're alive," he said quietly. But it didn't sound like belief. It sounded like denial trying to survive. The radio suddenly burst with sound. Not static. Voices. Many voices. All at once. Layered like a broken recording. But one phrase cut through clearly. Temperature stabilized by presence. Olson looked at me sharply. "Presence, what does that mean?" I didn't answer, because I already felt it. The warmth wasn't coming from machines. It wasn't from heating systems. It was coming from us. The lights flickered slightly. Not breaking. Adjusting. Like the station was recalibrating around our bodies. Around our existence. Then something moved in the corner of my vision. One of the seated crew members stood up. Slowly, very slowly. Harris raised his weapon immediately. "Stop." But the man didn't stop. He turned toward us, and for the first time, he made eye contact. His eyes were calm. Too calm. And he spoke one sentence. "You're early." I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked. But before he could answer, the radio cut him off. "This shift is not your first." Olson stepped back. No, he muttered. The man in front of us smiled again. But this time it felt different. Not friendly. Not hostile. Familiar. Like he had seen us before. Many times. Then the temperature spiked again. The entire station grew warmer. Almost uncomfortably warm now. Sweat ran down my neck. My gear felt heavier. Harris looked around nervously. "This isn't normal," he said. But nothing here had been normal since we arrived. The radio voice softened. Almost gentle now. "You always return during warmth cycle." I swallowed. "What cycle?" Silence. Then, the one where you forget the cold. That hit something deep in my mind. Because I suddenly realized I couldn't remember exactly how cold it was outside anymore. The memory felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. The crew inside the control hub resumed work, as if nothing had happened, as if we were just another environmental fluctuation passing through their routine. But I knew better now. We weren't visitors. We were part of the system they were running. Or worse, we were being added to it. The radio gave one final transmission before silence returned. Temperature is now optimal for continuation. A pause, then softer. Welcome back to Station 22. And in that moment, I realized the warm room wasn't a refuge from the frozen dark. It was the reason the cold outside still existed at all. The storm didn't arrive like weather. It arrived like a decision. One moment the Arctic sky was empty, dull, frozen still. The next moment, the wind changed direction. Not naturally, not randomly, like something far away had turned its head toward us. Then the blizzard began. Vast, violent, alive. Snow didn't fall. It attacked. The white world outside, weather post 22, vanished in seconds, swallowed by spinning ice and screaming wind. I stood at the control room window, watching the horizon disappear completely. Harris stepped back from the glass. "This wasn't in the forecast," he said. His voice sounded too small, like the storm was already making room for something louder. Olson checked his tablet. No data spike, no warning, nothing. He looked up slowly. This storm came from nowhere. That was the first open loop. How does weather appear without origin? The wind hit the station walls harder. Not random gusts. Rhythmic, like something walking outside in circles. The metal frame of the station groaned under pressure, but the structure didn't shake. It held too well, like it was designed to withstand this exact moment. Harris moved closer to the radio. "Control, do you read? We're inside WP-22. Severe storm forming." Static answered him, but underneath the static, something else. A voice, soft, almost playful. "Don't report yet." Harris froze. I felt my stomach tighten, because that wasn't command protocol. That wasn't weather response. That was familiarity. The lights flickered once, then stabilized, but the storm outside didn't feel like it was outside anymore. It felt closer, like it had moved against the glass. Pressing, listening. Olson stepped away from the window. "I don't like this," he muttered. Then, the first voice came. Not from the radio, not from speakers, from the wind. Clear, too clear. "Kashif." I stopped breathing. My name, carried through the storm. Impossible. Harris turned to me immediately. "Did you hear that?" I didn't answer, because I was still trying to understand how wind could speak. Another gust hit the station. Harder. The walls vibrated slightly. And then the voice came again. Different direction this time. Closer. "Kashif, don't go back there." My throat tightened. That wasn't just my name. That was a sentence. A memory. Something I didn't remember experiencing. Olson grabbed his helmet. "That's impossible. Wind can't form words." But even as he said it, the storm answered him. "Olson." His face went pale instantly. The wind had spoken his name too. The control room suddenly felt smaller. Not physically, but emotionally. Like the walls had moved inward. Like the storm was compressing space around us. Harris whispered, "This is hallucination. It has to be." But I saw his hands shaking. He didn't believe it. Not fully. Outside, the blizzard intensified. Whiteout conditions swallowed everything. Even the station's outer lights disappeared into the storm. And then, the memories began. The wind changed tone. Not speed. Tone, like a voice adjusting itself to speak more clearly. And then it spoke again. This time softer. Kinder. "Kashif, remember the truck, the desert road." My vision blurred slightly, because I saw it. Not outside. Inside my head. Driving through heat. Radio crackling. That same feeling of being watched. I shook my head hard. "No, that's not here." But the storm didn't stop. It continued anyway. "Remember the assignment." Harris stepped closer. "Stop listening to it," he said. But it was too late. because the storm wasn't speaking to us. It was speaking through us. Olson suddenly dropped to one knee. "I can hear my house," he whispered. We turned toward him. He looked terrified. "I can hear my daughter calling me." Harris grabbed his arm. "There's no signal here." But Olson wasn't listening anymore. Tears formed under his goggles. "I can hear her laughing, I can." The wind cut him off. "Olson, you left the door open." He gasped, like the memory physically hit him. I felt my chest tighten, because that wasn't a weather phenomenon. That was personal. That was inside him. The storm grew louder. Not chaotic louder. Structured louder. Like multiple voices aligning into one system. And then it spoke again. This time from everywhere. Kashif, Harris, Olson. All three of us froze. It knew us. Not as operators. Not as personnel. But as individuals. Harris backed away from the window. "No, no, no, no." The wind continued. We remember all shifts. That was the second open loop. Who is we? Then something worse happened. The control room monitor flickered on, even though no one touched it. Static first, then image, outside camera feed, but not of the storm, of us, standing inside. But wrong. Our positions were shifted, like the storm was showing a different version of this moment. A version we hadn't lived yet. Olson whispered, "That's not us." But it was. Just not this us. The wind changed again. Lower, slower, almost like breathing. Then it spoke again. This time closer than before. "Kashif, you stayed longer in Station 7 than you remember." My stomach dropped, because I didn't remember staying anywhere. But the sentence felt familiar anyway, like something I had forgotten on purpose. Harris grabbed my shoulder. "We need to shut the comms down." But I didn't move, because I was starting to understand something worse. The storm wasn't just recalling memories. It was organizing them. Another gust hit the station, hard enough to make the lights dim. For half a second, everything went dark. Then, voices filled the room. Not through devices, through air itself. Fragments, moments, half sentences. "Kashif, the signal, don't open." Harris, report. Olson, stay back from. It sounded like broken history. Like time itself had been recorded incorrectly. Olson screamed suddenly. "I remember this." We turned. He was shaking. "I remember this exact moment." Harris shouted, "That's not possible." But Olson kept repeating it. "I died here." Silence hit the room instantly. Even the storm paused for a fraction. That was the third open loop. What did he mean, died? The wind outside suddenly dropped. Not stopped. Dropped. Like pressure shifting. Like something stepping closer to the station. Then the voice returned. Calm again. Almost gentle. "You always remember at the storm cycle." I whispered, "What cycle?" The answer came immediately. "The one where you hear yourselves clearly." My breath caught, because I realized something. We weren't hearing voices in the storm. We were hearing echoes of ourselves. The blizzard intensified again, but now it felt different. Focused, like it had found what it wanted. Harris looked at me. "We're leaving," he said firmly. But when he turned toward the door, it wasn't there. Just wall. Solid. Sealed. Olson laughed suddenly. A broken sound. "We never left last time either," he whispered. That hit harder than anything else, because he said it like a memory, not a fear. The storm spoke one last time. Soft, clear, final. "Kashif, you always answer when the wind uses your name." I closed my eyes for a second. Bad decision, because behind my eyelids, I saw the desert. Station 7, Weather Post 22, all layered together, all existing at once, and in every version of it. We were still inside, still listening, still responding. When I opened my eyes again, the storm outside had changed completely. No longer white, no longer chaotic. It formed patterns now. Circles, like writing, like a system trying to communicate directly through weather itself. Harris stepped back slowly. "This isn't weather," he said quietly. And for the first time, I agreed, because the storm didn't feel like nature anymore. It felt like memory returning to claim what it never forgot. And somewhere inside that endless wind, it was still saying my name, patiently, like it knew I would eventually answer again. It started with the radio saying our deaths like they were weather updates. No warning tone, no urgency, just calm, precise voices reading us out one by one. Harris was the first to hear it properly. He froze near the console, head tilted slightly like he was trying to understand broken language. Then the radio spoke again. "Harris, expected cessation of biological function, 0418 local cycle." Harris stepped back slowly. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not." The radio didn't stop. It continued like a report. Cause, prolonged exposure to station feedback loop. Olson grabbed the mic. "Control, confirm last transmission." Static answered, but underneath it, something was breathing. Slow, patient. I felt my throat tighten, because the voice didn't sound like prediction. It sounded like memory being read out loud, like it had already happened, just not yet to us. The system chimed again, this time softer, closer. "Kashif, expected cessation of biological function, 0419 local cycle." I stopped breathing. Harris turned toward me instantly. "That's not real," he said quickly. "That's not possible." But the radio didn't argue. It simply added more detail. Cause, acknowledgement of full station cycle integration. That was the first open loop. What does it mean to be integrated into a weather station? Olson slammed the console, shut it off, but nothing responded. No buttons worked. No switches mattered anymore. The system wasn't being controlled. It was speaking on its own now, like it had finally stopped pretending to be equipment. The lights dimmed slightly, not failing, adjusting, like the station was preparing for something. The wind outside had stopped completely. That was worse than the storm. No sound, no pressure, just absolute silence pressing against the walls. Harris walked toward the window slowly. "What is happening outside?" he asked. I joined him, and I saw it. The blizzard was gone. The Arctic horizon was gone. There was only white flatness. No direction. No distance. No sky separation. Just endless blank space. Like the world had been erased and left unfinished. The radio spoke again. "Olson expected cessation, 0417. Olson laughed. But it wasn't humor. It was panic breaking shape. "You're all hearing this, right?" he asked. Harris didn't answer, because the system continued. Movement detected. Acceptance stage initiated. Olson stepped back. No, I'm not accepting anything. But his voice shook, like something inside him already was. Then something changed in the room. The temperature dropped. Suddenly, not gradually, like a switch flipped. Warm station gone. Cold returned instantly. But it wasn't normal cold. It felt like loss, like something alive leaving the space. Harris exhaled sharply. "This place is revering," he said. I looked at him. Revering into what? He didn't answer, because the radio answered for him. Return to baseline state, frozen observation cycle. That was the second open loop. What is a frozen observation cycle? Olson backed toward the door. "I'm leaving," he said. But when he reached it, it wasn't locked. It wasn't sealed. It simply didn't open. Like it no longer understood the concept of exit. He pushed harder. Nothing. Then the radio spoke softly. "Olson, movement denied." He turned sharply. Denied by who? Silence. Then, by recorded outcome. I felt my chest tighten. Recorded outcome. Not prediction. Not warning. Outcome. That word didn't belong in a weather report. Harris grabbed my arm. "We need to disconnect power," he said quickly. But even as he said it, the light stabilized brighter, like the station was resisting the idea of being shut down. Like it had finally decided we were part of it. Then the final report began. Not fragmented anymore. Not broken. Full sentences. Clear voice. Almost human. Final weather report for station 22 cycle completion. The console screens flickered. All of them at once. Then synchronized. One image. Us. Standing inside the control room. But not this moment. Another version. Still, frozen, like a photograph that had already been taken. The voice continued. "Harris, last movement recorded at 04:18. Harris whispered, "That's not true." But even as he said it, he looked at his own hands, like he was checking if time still belonged to him. The radio didn't pause. "Olson, last recorded resistance at 04:17. Olson shook his head. No. But his voice was fatting, like even denial was being logged. Then it said my name again, but differently this time. Not calm, not neutral. Soft, almost familiar. Kashif, final acknowledgement at 04:19. I stepped back instinctively. "What acknowledgement?" I asked out loud. Silence followed. Then the answer came. "This one." And that was the third open loop. What is the acknowledgement the system is waiting for? The lights dimmed again, then stabilized into a cold blue, like emergency mode. But there was no emergency, only completion. Harris looked at me. "We are not leaving this room," he said quietly. It wasn't a question anymore. It was realization. Olson sat down suddenly, not collapsing, just accepting gravity differently. "I've seen this before," he whispered. Harris turned to him. "What do you mean?" Olson didn't look up. "I remember the last cycle." That sentence changed everything. Because it wasn't fear. It was familiarity. The radio softened again. A continuation confirmed. The console screen shifted, now showing logs. Not current. Past. Multiple versions of the same moment. Different outcomes. different choices, all recorded, all displayed at once, like the station had already tested every version of us and picked this one. I stepped closer to the screen and saw something that made my stomach drop. A timestamp list, dozens, hundreds, all labeled with our names. Same cycle, repeated, slight variations, but always ending the same way. Station remains active. Crew integrated. Observation continues. Harris whispered, "We've done this before." But it didn't sound like confusion. It sounded like recognition trying to surface. Like his mind was remembering something his body had already lived. The radio spoke one last structured line. "This is the final weather report." A pause, longer than before. Then, "There is no Earth transmission beyond this cycle." Silence hit the room instantly. Olson looked up. "What does that mean?" No answer came from the radio, because there was no radio anymore. Only system voice. Harris tried the mic again. "Control, do you copy? Anyone on Earth respond?" Static. Then, nothing. Not even static. Complete absence. I looked at the console. Signal strength, 0. Not weak. Not lost. 0. Like the concept of receiving had been deleted. That was the final open loop. If Earth is silent, who is the station reporting to? The lights flickered once, then stabilized into full brightness. Warm again. Comforting again. Wrong again. Harris looked at me. "I don't like that," he whispered. But his voice wasn't afraid anymore. It was tired, like something in him had already stopped fighting. Olson stood slowly. "I think we're supposed to stay," he said quietly. Harris turned sharply. "What?" Olson pointed at the screens. "They already wrote it." I looked again, and I saw it. Not data, not logs, but narrative. Our ending, already completed. Not happening. Recorded. The radio came back one final time. Not voice, not system, just tone. Soft. Final. Weather cycle complete. A pause. Then, "Thank you for your participation." And for the first time since we arrived, the station stopped updating. Not shutting down. Not ending. Just finished. Like it had received what it needed, and no longer required us to continue. It only appears for 3 seconds. Then it disappears again. Like it knows someone is watching. I shouldn't have noticed it at all. It was just a routine diagnostic sweep of the transit grid. Just numbers, lines, stations, normal systems data. But then I saw it. One entry that wasn't supposed to exist. Station 14B active. I blinked, checked again. It was gone. Just like that. But the system log flickered, and something lingered behind it. A ghost line of coordinates, and a name I had never seen before. Station 14B. I opened the archive logs immediately. Nothing. No record. No construction file. No maintenance history. It didn't exist in any official database, but the system still referenced it. That was the first open loop. How can something removed from all records still generate live data? I leaned closer to the screen. The transit control room was quiet at that hour. Only the hum of servers and distant ventilation. Normal. Safe. But my eyes kept returning to that empty space in the system map. like the grid itself was hiding something behind a blank wall. Then it flickered again. Just for a moment, Station 14B reappeared. Active, online, but with no route connected. No lines leading in or out. Just a single node sitting in the middle of nothing. I zoomed in. The system auto-corrected. Tried to erase it again. But I caught a detail before it vanished. A timestamp. Real-time data. Occupancy status 1. I felt my throat tighten slightly. 1 passenger, I whispered. But there were no trains scheduled anywhere near that sector. That was the second open loop. Who is inside a station that doesn't exist? I escalated the search. Forced deeper system access. Old backup layers. Cold storage archives. That's when I found something worse. A construction file. Corrupted. Half deleted. But still readable in fragments. Station 14B, emergency bypass node, discontinued after incident cycle. The file cut off. No explanation. No incident report attached. Just silence where information should have been. Then the system pinged again. This time louder. A diagnostic alert. Not from me. From the network itself. Live feed detected. Station 14B. I froze, because I never activated a live feed. My cursor moved on its own, or maybe I moved without realizing it. The screen opened, and I saw it. A station platform. Dim lights. Old design. Too old. Like something from a transit system that stopped existing decades ago. The camera feed was stable. Too stable. No motion blur. No signal noise. Just perfect clarity. And then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The platform number sign. It read 14B. I leaned back slowly. Okay, this is a glitch, I told myself. But my voice didn't sound convinced. Because glitches don't usually have lighting, or depth, or dust floating in air, or sound. Then I heard it, faint, through my speakers, a train arriving. But the system showed no train schedule, no active lines. Still, the sound got louder, metal grinding against tracks that weren't on any map. The feed shifted slightly, as if the camera had moved. But cameras don't move themselves. The platform was empty. Almost empty. Except for one thing. A bench. And someone sitting on it. I zoomed in without thinking. My hands were shaking now. The figure was still. Too still. No movement. No reaction to the arriving train sound. Just sitting. Waiting. Then the system log updated again. Passenger detected, confirmed. I swallowed hard, because that meant the system wasn't malfunctioning. It was recognizing something. I whispered, "Who are you?" No answer came, but the figure on the screen slowly turned its head. Just slightly. Not fully. Enough to acknowledge something unseen. And then it spoke, not through audio feed, through system text overlay, right on my screen. Why was I removed? I stood up instantly, chair scraping behind me. What the hell, I muttered. That was the third open loop. How does a station ask why it was removed? I checked security logs, access attempts, network intrusion detection. Nothing. No external breach. No internal command. But the system kept responding anyway. New text appeared. Train still arrives here. Another line. People still wait. Then, but no one records us. I felt a strange pressure in my chest, like the room itself had become smaller. I checked the transit grid again. Station 14B was gone, but the live feed was still open, still active, still showing the platform. That wasn't possible. Deleted nodes don't maintain feeds, unless they were never truly deleted, just hidden somewhere deeper. The train sound grew louder, closer. The feed shook slightly. First time, just a minor vibration, like the system itself had noticed something approaching. Then I saw movement on the platform. More figures. 1, 2, then more. They weren't there before. They were just appearing. Not walking in. Not arriving. Just becoming visible. My breathing slowed without me realizing. The system updated again. Occupancy 7. Then, occupancy 12. It kept increasing, even though no doors opened. No train entered. No camera cut. Just more people appearing in the same space. Sitting, standing, waiting, like they had always been there. Then the original figure stood up, slowly, turned fully toward the camera, and this time I saw its face clearly. It looked human, but wrong, not damaged, not decayed, just misaligned, like memory of a face rather than a real one. And it spoke again, this time clearer. You still route trains through us. I shook my head. No route exists there. But even as I said it, the system auto-filled a line I didn't type. Emergency reroute active. My system dashboard flashed red. A route appeared, connecting station 14B to everywhere. That was impossible. Transit networks don't connect to non-existent nodes. But it was there, expanding, growing, recalculating entire grid structure around it. Like reality itself was adjusting to include something it had forgotten. The platform feed flickered again. For half a second, I saw something behind the figures. Not a wall, not darkness, but another platform. And behind that, another, layered, infinite. Like station 14B wasn't one place, but a repeating structure, stacked over itself, endlessly. Then my speakers crackled again. Not system voice this time. Not text. Actual sound. A whisper. Close. Right behind me. You are now recorded. I turned instantly. No one there. Only empty control room. But my system log changed. Without input. New entry appeared. Observer added to station 14B record. That was the final open loop. If I'm now recorded, where am I being stored? The feed on screen stabilized. All figures on the platform turned toward the camera at once. Perfect synchronization. And then they all spoke together. Not loudly, not aggressively, just calmly. We were never removed. A pause. Then, you were just told we were. The system map blinked again. Station 14B reappeared on the grid. Not hidden, not erased, fully integrated now. Every route connected to it. Every line passing through it. Like it had always been there. And I just hadn't been allowed to see it. Until now. My terminal auto-locked. No input accepted. Final message appeared on screen. Next scheduled arrival, observer transfer cycle. I stared at it. My reflection in the dark monitor looked back at me. But for a moment, it wasn't just me anymore. There were others behind my reflection, waiting on a platform I had never been to. And somewhere deep in the system, a train I could not see had already started moving. The train didn't stop because of a signal. It stopped because something stood on the track that wasn't on the map. And the worst part, the brakes weren't activated by us. They activated on their own. I was inside the maintenance carriage when it happened. No passengers, no scheduled halt. Just me, 2 engineers, and a route that should have been empty for the next 100 kilometers. Then the wheels screamed. Metal against metal. Slow at first, then sudden force. Like the train had seen something ahead and decided not to obey us anymore. Harris slammed forward into the control panel. "What the hell is this?" he shouted. But I already knew something was wrong, because the emergency system wasn't showing an error. It was showing a location. Station 14B. Again, the train shook as it slowed down. Outside the window, the tunnel lights blinked in uneven rhythm. Not broken, intentional, like someone was tapping on the system from the outside. Olsen leaned over my shoulder. "We're not scheduled to stop here," he said. His voice was tight, controlled panic, but the train kept braking anyway. And then the speaker crackled. Not warning tone, not dispatch, just static breathing. Slow, close. The tunnel ahead opened into darkness. Then something impossible appeared. A platform, fully lit, clean, underground. Station 14B. Harris stood up immediately. No. That station was removed from routing systems. But even as he said it, the train aligned perfectly with the platform edge. Like it had done this before. Like it remembered. The wheels locked. We stopped. Completely. Too perfectly. No recoil. No delay. Just arrival. Silence hit the carriage. Not normal silence. System silence. The kind that makes you realize even sound has rules. Olsen looked at me. "We need to report this." But I couldn't move. Because through the window, the station lights were still on. Not emergency lighting. Full power. White. Clean. Alive. That was the first open loop. How does a deleted underground station still maintain full electrical operation? The train doors did not open, but they unlocked. That was worse, because unlocking means permission, not force, not failure. Permission. Harris stepped back. "I'm not going out there," he said. But the system didn't care what he said. The door slid open anyway. Slow, smooth, like they had been waiting for us to agree. Cold air rushed in, but it wasn't the same cold as before. This was underground cold. Still, heavy, processed, not natural. Olsen stepped closer to the door. "I can see light movement," he whispered. I followed his gaze. The platform was active. People walking, not rushing, not reacting, just moving like part of a routine that had never been interrupted. But there was something wrong with them. They didn't cast shadows correctly. Not fully, like they were slightly out of sync with the light source. Harris grabbed my arm. "We stay inside," he said firmly. But I didn't answer, because I saw something on the platform that made my stomach drop. A maintenance board, old style, physical paper logs, and it was updating. in real time, writing itself, without hands. That was the second open loop. Who writes logs in a station that doesn't exist? A voice came over the station speakers. Calm, professional, too clean. Welcome train unit, please remain docked. Olson froze. Did you hear that? I nodded slowly, but the voice wasn't done. Maintenance cycle is currently active. Harris stepped toward the door again. What maintenance cycle? He shouted. No response. Only silence after silence. Like the station was choosing what to acknowledge. Then I saw movement below the platform. Through the gap. A lower level. Another platform. And below that. Another. Stacked. Repeating. Infinite descent. Like Station 14B wasn't a station. It was a vertical system. Layered underground like memory. Olson whispered, "This goes deeper than rail infrastructure." His voice trailed off, because something was moving on the lower level. Looking up at us. The speakers crackled again. This time closer. Personal. Crew arrival confirmed. Harris shook his head. No crew scheduled. But the system corrected him immediately. Schedule updated. That was the third open loop. Who updates a schedule that already exists in motion? The train lights flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized in a dim amber tone. Like the system was switching to night mode. But there was no night underground. Only systems deciding what we should see. Olson moved toward the door. "I'm going to check it," he said. Harris grabbed him. "No, you're not." But Olson stopped resisting, because something outside had caught his attention. He pointed slowly. There. I followed his finger. On the platform wall. A reflection. Not ours. Something standing behind us inside the train. But when we turned, nothing. Only empty carriage. The station voice returned. "This unit is now integrated." Harris stepped back slowly. "What does that mean?" No answer. Instead, the platform lights brightened, and the people outside stopped moving. Every single one. At the same time. All facing the train. All perfectly still. Like waiting for instruction. Then the doors began to close. We didn't touch them. They just started closing. Slowly. Calmly. Like the station had finished observing us. Olson rushed forward. "No, wait." But the doors ignored him. Harris shouted into the console. "Override emergency stop." Nothing responded, because the train was no longer asking for permission from us. It was asking from something else. The voice returned one final time. Soft, almost kind. "Passengers may disembark." I froze, because that wasn't an order. It was a statement of fact. Like disembarking was already decided. Already recorded. The doors fully opened again. But the platform had changed. The people were gone. Completely. No movement. No presence. Only empty station, lighting stretching into silence. Olson looked at me. They disappeared. But I noticed something worse. The maintenance board had updated. New entry. Incoming unit received. That was the fourth open loop. If they left, where did they go? Harris backed away from the door. "I don't like this," he whispered. But his voice sounded distant now. Like he was already emotionally disconnecting. Like the station was slowly rewriting his urgency. Olson stepped onto the platform first. "I need to confirm this," he said. then paused, like something had changed in him. He looked back at us and smiled slightly. I think I've been here before. That sentence shouldn't have been possible, but it felt familiar. Too familiar. He walked forward, and the moment his foot left the train, the speakers chimed. Passenger received. Harris shouted, "Olson, get back." But Olson didn't turn. He just kept walking. Calm. Like he wasn't leaving us. Like we were the ones arriving late. The platform lights dimmed again, then stabilized. And for a brief second, I saw the reflection again. Not in glass, not in metal, but in the station floor itself. Olson wasn't alone. There were others walking beside him now. Invisible until the light shifted. Then visible again. The doors started closing. Faster this time. Harris grabbed my shoulder. "We leave now," he said. But the train didn't agree. The system voice spoke once more. Unit transition complete. And as the doors sealed shut, I saw Olson stop at the edge of the platform. He didn't look scared. He looked settled, like something had finally matched his memory. The train started moving again. Slowly, smoothly, leaving station 14B behind. But through the window, I saw the platform again. Full, active, occupied, like nothing had changed at all. And as we pulled away into the tunnel, the station voice whispered one last time through the speakers. "You will return when your maintenance cycle begins." Then silence. Not system silence. Real silence. Like something had finally stopped pretending to be infrastructure and started becoming something else entirely. We should have been out of that tunnel in 10 minutes. But the clock on the train dashboard stopped counting time. It just froze on 03:17. Not paused. Frozen. Like time itself had decided not to move forward anymore. Harris noticed it first. "That's not possible," he whispered. But I was already watching the tunnel outside. Same curve. Same cracked concrete. Same warning lights. We were moving forward. But nothing was changing. That was the first real sign. We were not on a route anymore. We were inside a loop. The train kept moving at normal speed, but every window showed the same tunnel segment repeating. Every few seconds, the same broken metal sign appeared. Maintenance zone, authorized personnel only. Same rust pattern. Same tilt. Same flickering red light above it. Olson leaned forward. "We've passed that sign 4 times already." No one replied, because saying it out loud made it real. That was the first open loop. If we're moving forward, why does the world repeat? The train suddenly slowed. Not braking, just losing intention. Like something had removed the need to continue. The tunnel opened ahead. A station appeared. Station 14B. Again. Same platform. Same lighting. Same still air. Harris slammed his fist into the control panel. No, we already left this place. But the doors ignored him. They unlocked anyway. Slowly. Patiently. Like the system was waiting for us to accept it. We didn't get off. At least not at first. We just watched. The platform was empty. No movement. No people. But the lights were on. Perfectly clean. No flicker. That was the second open loop. Who powers a station that should be abandoned inside a sealed tunnel loop? The train started moving again. We didn't choose it. It just continued. Forward. through the tunnel, or what we thought was forward. But 20 seconds later, the same station appeared again. Same angle, same distance, same everything. Olsen's voice cracked. This is impossible. We didn't even turn. But the tunnel outside didn't care what we believed. It only repeated what it was allowed to show. Harris opened the emergency map. It was useless. The route line kept bending back into itself, like a knot that refused to untie. Then a new label appeared on the screen. Not typed, not selected, generated, loop sector active. That was the third open loop. Who defines a loop in a system that claims to be linear? The train stopped again. Station 14B. Again, but this time something was different. The platform wasn't empty. There were shapes, not fully visible, not fully formed, just standing at different distances, like they were waiting for resolution. Harris refused to look at them, but I couldn't stop, because something about them felt familiar. Not faces, not bodies, just presence, like memory of people instead of people themselves. The speakers turned on. No warning tone, just voice. Calm, neutral, loop integrity stable. Olsen stepped back. What does that mean? No answer. Then another line. Exit routes unavailable. That was the fourth open loop. If there is no exit, where did the original entry happen? The train doors opened again. We still didn't move, because something inside us knew. Stepping out wouldn't change the situation. It would only confirm it. The platform outside remained unchanged, but the figures were closer now. Not walking, just nearer, like distance was losing meaning. Harris finally spoke. We reverse, we go back. But the train didn't respond to reverse commands. The system panel flickered once, then displayed a single message. Direction not applicable. Olsen laughed nervously. That's not a real response. But it stayed on screen, unchanging, like reality had stopped negotiating. The tunnel lights outside dimmed, then returned, then dimmed again, each cycle revealing the same station, over and over. But now something else appeared between repetitions. Doors, emergency exits, tunnel breaks, all of them leading back to station 14B. Every single path, every single direction. That was the fifth open loop. If every exit returns here, what defines outside? The train finally stopped moving. Completely. Not at the station. Not away from it. Just paused inside the loop itself. Like the system gave up pretending movement mattered. The speakers crackled again. Passenger decision required. Harris snapped. There is no decision. But the system responded instantly. There is only return or continuation. Olsen turned to me. His face looked tired now. Not scared. Just worn down. Maybe this is normal for them, he said quietly. I didn't understand what he meant, but I felt something shift in the air. Like the station was listening harder now. The platform outside changed slightly. Subtly, almost unnoticeable. But the lights became warmer, less mechanical, more inviting. That should have been comforting. It was. It felt like adaptation. Like the station was learning what tone we responded to. Then something impossible happened. A door appeared in the tunnel wall. Not sliding, not mechanical, just existing where there was empty concrete before. Harris noticed it too. That wasn't there a second ago. We stared at it. No signage. No label. Just a black doorway leading into the station. That was the sixth open loop. If exits appear only when observed, are they real or reactive? The train speakers whispered again. Soft, almost personal. Choose your loop. Olson shook his head. This isn't a choice. But the system didn't correct him. It waited, patiently, like it had time in infinite supply. Harris stepped toward the control panel. We override it manually. But nothing responded. Every button was already pre-decided. Every function already executed. Even before we pressed anything. We were inside a recorded system, pretending to be interactive. The station outside flickered. For the first time. Not broken. Not glitching. Breathing. Like something inside it had shifted attention. And suddenly, the figures on the platform all turned away, as if losing interest in us. That was worse than them watching, because it meant we were no longer the subject. We were becoming background. The train speakers gave one final message. Loop completion threshold reached. Harris whispered, "What threshold?" No answer. Only silence. Heavy, structured, intentional. The door in the tunnel wall opened wider. Cold air came through. Not escape air. Decision air. The kind that feels like it already knows your answer before you make it. Olson looked at me. "I think we already made it," he said. I didn't respond, because I realized something. We had been looping long before we noticed. The train finally powered down. Not failure. Closure. The station outside dimmed slowly. Not disappearing. Waiting. Patient. Like it had already stored us in its system and was now deciding when to use us. And just before everything went still, the speakers whispered one last time. Return confirmed. But I never chose to return. So the only question left was simple. When did I first arrive here, without noticing? It started with a voice I thought I recognized. Not because I had heard it before, but because it sounded like it already knew me. Arrival scheduled for Engineer Rahul Khan. I stopped breathing for a second, because that is my name. Harris looked at me immediately. Did you say something? I shook my head, but the speakers kept going. Same sentence, over and over. No pause, no break. Like the station had decided my name was worth repeating. We were still inside station 14B. Or maybe it was the station inside us now. I couldn't tell anymore. The platform lights outside the train were steady. Too steady. No flicker. No decay. Just endless white illumination, stretching into a tunnel that felt deeper than geography. And the announcement kept repeating. Arrival scheduled, Engineer Rahul Khan. That was the first real break in my thinking. Not fear. Recognition. Why is my name in a system I never registered for? That was the first open loop. Harris walked toward the door again. We need to shut that speaker off, he said. But the control panel was already frozen. Every button replaced with the same message. Announcement cycle active. Olson leaned closer. It's not just playing audio, he whispered. It's updating records. I didn't understand what he meant until I saw the system log. My ID, transit clearance, shift schedule, all attached to station 14B. All pre-filled. all active, even though I never signed anything. The announcement changed, just slightly. Arrival confirmed. Engineer Rahul Khan, maintenance duty assigned. Harris turned sharply. Maintenance duty, we are not assigned here. But the system didn't respond to him. Only the speaker did. And it didn't stop. It never stopped. That was the second open loop. Who assigns duty inside a station that was erased from all transit records? The train doors opened again. No command. No warning. Just acceptance. Cold air flowed in. But something about it felt structured. Like it was carrying instructions instead of temperature. Olsen stepped closer to the platform edge. This place is registering us, he said quietly. What does that even mean? Harris snapped. But even he sounded unsure now. Like his certainty was being worn down by repetition. By sound. By numbing. The speaker crackled louder. Engineer Rahul Khan, please proceed to platform inspection. I stepped back without realizing it. No, I whispered. But the system didn't hear denial. Only identity. That was the third open loop. If a system repeats your name long enough, does it become instruction? Something changed on the platform. Subtle at first. The maintenance board flickered. Then updated. New line added. Assigned personnel present. Then another. Waiting confirmation of arrival. But we were already here. We had been here for hours. Maybe longer. The station didn't seem to care about time accuracy. Only procedural completion. Harris grabbed my arm. We leave now. But the train didn't move. Not forward. Not backward. Just held. Like it was waiting for authorization from something higher than control. Olsen stared at the speaker. It's still going, he said. And it was. Always going. Never pausing. Never correcting itself. Arrival scheduled. Engineer Rahul Khan. Each repetition felt heavier than the last. Like the name itself was becoming part of the air. Then something strange happened. The announcement added detail. Arrival scheduled. Engineer Rahul Khan. First assignment cycle. Harris turned sharply. First cycle, that implies repetition. That was the fourth open loop. If there is a first cycle, how many have there been before this one? The lights outside dimmed slightly. Not enough to notice immediately, but enough to feel. Like the station was adjusting contrast. Preparing focus. Olsen pointed toward the far end of the platform. There. At first I didn't see it. Then I did. A shadow. Standing still. Not moving. Not reacting. Just positioned like it had been waiting longer than we had been alive. The speaker changed tone. Slightly deeper now. Engineer Rahul Khan, proceed to designated entry point. Harris backed away. This is not a transit protocol, he said. But I wasn't listening anymore. Because I realized something worse. The voice wasn't calling me to the platform. It was calling me to a role. Olsen stepped closer to me. You're the only one it's nomming, he said. I shook my head. No, it said all of us earlier. But he was right. Only my name was being repeated now. Everything else had faded into background instruction. That was the fifth open loop. Why isolate one identity in a system built for collective transit? The announcement stopped for exactly 1 second. Silence hit the platform. Heavy, instant. And in that silence, I heard something else. Not through speakers, through the structure itself. A whisper layered under the station. Rahil. I froze, because it wasn't the announcer anymore. It was something inside the system, responding directly. The speakers returned. Louder, faster. Engineer Rahil Khan. Delayed arrival detected. Harris shouted, delayed. We never agreed to arrive. But the system ignored him again. Olsen stepped onto the platform. Just one step. And immediately, the announcement updated. Partial arrival confirmed. That made no sense. But it didn't need to. It only needed to be recorded. The platform lights shifted again. Now warmer, less sterile, more welcoming. That should have been good. But it felt wrong. Like the station was trying to comfort something it had already trapped. Harris grabbed Olsen. Get back in the train. But Olsen didn't resist. He just looked confused. Like he couldn't remember why he should be afraid. That terrified me more than anything. The speaker repeated again. Engineer Rahil Khan, please complete arrival sequence. My legs felt heavy. Not weak. Just reluctant to move. Like the air itself was slowing decisions. That was the 6th open loop. If arrival is a sequence, what step comes after entry? Then the maintenance board updated again. This time slower. More deliberate. New line. Current crew incomplete. Another line followed immediately. Completion required for cycle closure. Harris looked at me. No one is closing anything, he said. But his voice lacked force now. Like the station was lowering volume on his certainty. The announcement suddenly paused. Not silence. Waiting. Then it spoke again. But differently. Closer. Almost personal. Rahil, you are late. I stepped back instinctively. Because that wasn't protocol language. That was recognition. That was memory. Olsen was now standing fully on the platform. Still not running. Not resisting. Just present. Like he had always belonged there, more than he belonged to the train. And then he turned slightly toward me. You should come out, he said softly. His voice wasn't forced. It sounded reasonable. That was the problem. The speakers repeated one final variation. Engineer Rahil Khan, arrival accepted. Harris shouted, accepted by what? But the answer didn't come from him. It came from the platform lights. They brightened once. Like approval. The train behind us began to close its doors. Not urgently. Not defensively. Just completing procedure. Harris rushed to stop it. But it didn't respond to human input anymore. Only system confirmation. And the speaker gave its final line. Unboarded units will be recorded as absent. That was the 7th open loop. If leaving marks you as absent, what does staying make you? Olsen smiled faintly again. And I realized he wasn't confused anymore. He was aligned. Like something inside him had accepted classification. See, he said, it's just a job. That sentence broke something in my thinking. Because it made horror sound like routine. The announcement continued. Forever now. No variation. No end point. Just my name cycling through the station, like a heartbeat that never learned to stop. Engineer Rahil Khan, arrival scheduled. Engineer Rahil Khan, arrival confirmed. Engineer Rahil Khan. And somewhere inside the station, something finally answered back. Not with sound, but with acceptance. And the system logged it immediately. Arrival complete. It wasn't there yesterday. I swear it was. I stood at the edge of the forest line, looking at something that should have taken months to build. A road, fresh asphalt, black smooth, still slightly glossy like it had just cooled down, cutting straight through protected land. No permits, no machines, no sound of construction, just a finished road where trees used to be. And that was the first thing that didn't feel right, because roads don't appear overnight. I checked my map first, then my GPS, then the old forest survey file on my tablet. Nothing, no planned route, no logging path, no emergency access line, just green space where the road now clearly existed. That was the first open loop. How does something physically large appear without leaving a trace in any system? I walked closer. The air changed near the edge of the road. Not colder, not warmer, just quieter, like sound itself was being filtered. Even the birds stopped calling from the trees nearby. That kind of silence doesn't happen naturally in a forest. It happens when something tells the forest to stop speaking. I crouched near the asphalt. It was still slightly warm, fresh enough that my fingers felt heat when I touched it. But there were no tire marks, no footprints, no machinery tracks on the soil edges. Just perfect construction. Too perfect, like it had never been made by human hands at all. I radioed base. Control, I've got a new road cutting through Sector 7, B, no record of construction. Can you confirm authorization? Static, then a delayed response. Negative, no construction projects approved in that area. I looked back at the road. It stretched deeper into the forest like a clean wound. That was the second open loop. If no one built it, what shaped it? I decided to follow it. That was my mistake, but also the only logical step. Because ignoring something like this would mean accepting it without understanding it. And I couldn't do that. Not yet. So I stepped onto the road, and the forest behind me felt farther away immediately, like I had crossed something more than just a boundary. The road was too straight. Forests don't allow straight lines unless forced. But this one didn't curve around trees. It erased them. Trunks were cleanly absent on both sides. Not cut, not burned, just missing, as if the road had been there first, and the forest grew around its absence. That was the third open loop. Which came first, the forest or the road? I walked for maybe 10 minutes. No change in terrain. No variation. Just endless black asphalt cutting forward. Then I noticed something small. Markers. White paint dots on the road surface. Equally spaced. Perfectly measured. But no equipment had passed here. No survey crew. No visible source. Still, the markings continued deeper ahead, like instructions left for someone already expected. Then I heard it. A distant sound. Not machinery. Not animals. Footsteps. Soft. Rhythmic. Ahead of me. I stopped immediately. Nothing visible. But the sound continued, walking in sync with mine. That was the fourth open loop. If a road is empty, what is walking on it? I called out. Hello. No answer. Only footsteps continuing for 3 more beats. Then silence. Complete silence again. Like whatever was there had acknowledged me and decided I wasn't important enough to respond to. That felt worse than hearing something answer back. I checked my compass. It spun once, then froze, pointing directly down the road. No variation. No magnetic drift. Just locked. That's when I realized something worse. The road wasn't just physical, it was directional. It was deciding where I could go. I kept walking, because turning back now felt heavier than continuing forward. Like the road would remember if I refused it. And I didn't like the idea of being remembered by something I didn't recognize. Then I saw it. A signpost, standing on the side of the road. Metal, new, no rust, no weathering. It shouldn't exist in a protected forest. But there it was, and it had text. Only one line. Welcome Route 0. That was the 5th open loop. Who names a road Route 0? I stepped closer. The sign changed as I looked at it. Not physically moving, but updating. The text flickered once, then became, "You are on time." I stepped back immediately. My breathing got heavier, because that wasn't signage. That was recognition. The forest around me shifted slightly. Not visually at first, but audibly. Birds returned, then stopped again. Wind increased, then stopped, like the environment was testing responses. That was the 6th open loop. If the environment reacts, what exactly is it reacting to? I turned around. The road behind me was still there, but something had changed. It looked longer, not physically, but perception-wise, like distance had stretched when I wasn't looking. The entrance I came from felt farther away than before. That shouldn't be possible, but it was. I tried my radio again. "Bass, do you copy?" Nothing, just faint static. Then a voice. Not bass, not human tone. Flat, calm. "You are within route parameters." I froze, because I hadn't spoken location coordinates. No transmission had gone out, so it wasn't responding to me. It was responding to my position itself. I walked faster now. Not running. Not yet. But urgency had entered my steps. The road seemed to adjust pace with me. Never ahead. Never behind. Always aligned. That was the 7th open loop. If movement is matched perfectly, is it still movement or control? Then I saw tire tracks. Finally, but they were wrong. Too large, too deep, and they didn't go forward. They came from nowhere and stopped in the middle of the road, like something had arrived here and simply decided arrival was enough. No exit direction, no continuation, just presence. The signposts increased, every few hundred meters. Same metal, same structure, each one slightly different message. You are progressing. You are aligned. You are expected. Each sentence felt less like information and more like confirmation that I was already inside a system I hadn't agreed to enter. Then the road bent, just slightly. First curve I had seen, but it didn't lead into forest. It led into something worse. A clearing, perfect circle, and in the center, another road entrance, identical to the one I came from. That was the 8th open loop. If every path leads to the same point, where does departure actually begin? I stopped walking. Finally, because something inside me refused to continue on instinct alone. The clearing was silent, too symmetrical, like it had been designed for observation rather than nature. And then I noticed something else. Footprints, mine, leading into the clearing, but also leaving it. Multiple times, different directions, same boots, same stride. That shouldn't exist. I stepped backward slowly, but the road didn't end behind me anymore. It extended, in both directions now, infinite, like it had rewritten its own geometry while I wasn't paying attention. That was the ninth open loop. If direction is no longer fixed, can escape even be defined? My radio suddenly clicked again, and this time it wasn't static. It was a recording, my own voice, from earlier, reporting the road. But I never sent that message. Still there it was. Exact tone, exact phrasing, playing back like memory that didn't belong to me. The forest around the clearing grew quieter, then darker. Not nightfall, something else. Like visibility itself was being reduced. The road remained visible though. Always visible. That consistency felt intentional, like it wanted to remain the only certainty in the system. And then the final sign appeared. No post, just text on the asphalt itself. Bright, fresh, like it was being written in real time. It said, "You have always been on Route 0. That was the final open loop. Because if I've always been here, then what was I doing before I noticed it? It started with a road that wasn't supposed to be there. I remember the first time I saw it clearly. The forest was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that feels too clean, like even the birds are holding their breath. I was checking boundary markers along the protected zone. Nothing unusual, just routine work. Then I saw tire marks. Fresh ones. But the thing that made my chest tighten wasn't the tracks. It was where they led. Straight into trees that have been standing for decades. No clearing, no cut path, no broken branches, just a road. A full, paved road stretching through land that should have made that impossible. I stopped the Jeep. For a moment, I just stared. My radio crackled softly on my shoulder, but I didn't answer it. I don't know why. Something about that road made sound feel wrong, like even talking would make it more real. I stepped out. The air felt colder near the edge of the trees. Not weather cold, something else. Like the forest was holding its breath around that road. I walked closer, and that's when I saw the first sign. A metal post, half hidden between branches. It was new. Too new. The paint was still bright yellow, not faded like it should be in a forest this deep, and the arrow on it pointed inward. Not toward a trail, not toward a park route, deep into the trees. I remember laughing once, quietly, because my brain didn't want to accept it. There is no way someone installed a sign here. I looked around for construction marks, survey tape, machinery tracks, anything. Nothing. Just trees and this clean, perfect road swallowing them whole. I took a picture on my phone. The moment I lowered it, something changed. The sign had moved. Not dramatically, not like in movies. Just slightly. The arrow wasn't pointing the same direction anymore. Now it pointed further in. I froze. My first thought was reflection error. My second thought was maybe I was tired. But my body didn't agree. My body already knew something was wrong. I took a step closer. The sign creaked softly, like it was reacting to me. And then I heard it. A faint sound down the road. Like distant engines. But wrong engines. Not trucks, not cars. Something heavier. Something slow. I backed away without thinking and got back into my Jeep. That should have been the end of it. I should have reported it immediately. But I didn't. Because when I checked the maps on my system, the road wasn't there. Not just missing. It was like the forest had swallowed the idea of it. And that's when I realized something even worse. The sign I saw outside. It was now on my digital map. pointing exactly where I was standing. The next morning, I went back with another ranger. His name was Rafik. He was older than me, the kind of man who laughs at forest rumors and calls them tourist stories. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. New illegal track, I said. We need to verify. He shrugged like it was nothing, probably smugglers. I didn't correct him. We drove in silence. But halfway through the forest route, Rafik leaned forward. Was this turn always here? I looked up. A new sign had appeared. Same yellow metal. Same arrow. But now it pointed left. And the road had already split. There was no fork yesterday. I slowed the jeep. Rafik frowned. That's not on any survey. I didn't answer, because I was watching the sign. It flickered. Not physically. Not like light. Like reality itself skipped. For 1 second the arrow pointed straight. Then left again. Then straight. Like it couldn't decide what the forest wanted. Rafik opened his radio. Control, we have an unmarked. The radio hissed. Then a voice came through. But it wasn't control. It was static shaped like words. Don't turn back. Rafik pulled the radio away from his ear instantly. What the hell was that? I didn't answer him, because I saw something worse. The sign had changed again. Now it pointed directly at us. Not the road. Not a direction. At us. Like it was watching. Rafik swore under his breath and stepped out of the jeep. Okay, someone's messing with us. He walked toward the sign. I should have stopped him, but I didn't move, because I noticed something on the ground. Footprints. Fresh, but not human. Too wide at the front, too spaced out, like something heavy had been packing around the sign over and over. Rafik reached it, touched the metal post. The moment his fingers made contact, the sign bent slightly. Not physically, like reality bent around his hand. Rafik froze. This is warm, he whispered. That's when the arrow on the sign snapped to the right. Fast, too fast, like a reflex. And the forest responded. The trees on the right side shifted. Not moving, but realigning, like they were making space. Rafik turned to me confused. Did you see? A loud crack cut him off. The road behind us changed. I'm not saying it appeared. I'm saying it rewrote itself. The dirt smoothed into asphalt in seconds. Perfect, fresh, like it had always been there. And the sign now pointed down it. Rafik stepped back slowly. No, he said, no, that's not possible. But the forest didn't care what was possible, because the signs weren't just directing anymore. They were deciding. I grabbed Rafik's arm. Don't follow it. He looked at me like I was the one losing my mind. Then his eyes shifted past me. I turned. Another sign had appeared behind us. Closer this time, pointing into deeper forest. And something was written under the arrow. Not paint, not ink. It looked carved, like it had been scratched in by something that didn't understand language properly. But I could still read it. Rafik's name. He stepped back, slowly, like the forest had just spoken his identity out loud. That's not funny, he whispered. The sign didn't move, but the arrow tilted slightly again, like it was nodding. And from deeper in the trees, we heard it again. The engine sound. Closer now. Rafik grabbed my shoulder. We leave right now. I nodded, but when we turned back to the jeep, the road behind us was gone. Just trees, standing perfectly untouched. like nothing had ever been there. Rafik froze. Where's the road? I couldn't answer him, because I was watching the signs now. Every sign we passed had changed. They weren't just directions anymore. They were instructions. Left, right, stop, go deeper. And every arrow pointed somewhere different depending on who was looking at it. Like it knew us separately. Like it was mapping our fear. We tried walking back the way we came. 10 minutes later, we found the same Jeep. Exactly where we left it. Same angle. Same dust. Even the engine was still warm. Rafik looked at me slowly. We didn't loop. I shook my head. I think the forest did. That's when the radio in my pocket turned on by itself. No button pressed. No signal requested. Just a soft hiss. Then a voice. Clear this time. Calm. Too calm. It said my name. Slowly. Like it had been practicing it. And then it said something that made my stomach drop. You already followed the first sign. Rafik snatched the radio and threw it to the ground. But the sound didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the device anymore. It was coming from the signs. All of them. Every single arrow in the forest had started speaking. Whispering. Repeating names. Not random names. Ours. And with every repetition, the arrows turned slightly deeper into the forest. Like something was counting us in. Rafik looked at me, breathing hard. We're being rooted, he said. And for the first time, I understood what that meant. The forest wasn't lost. We were. And the signs weren't showing the way out. They were removing every other option. From somewhere deeper in the trees, the engine sound stopped. Silence dropped hard. Then one final sign appeared in front of us. No pole. No base. Just floating metal, hanging between branches that weren't holding it. The arrow pointed straight at me. And under it, fresh and sharp, was a new message. Not carved this time. As if it had just been written seconds ago. It said, Engineer confirmed. Behind me, Rafik whispered something I'll never forget. It's choosing one of us. And the sign turned toward him. The first car came back without its driver. That's what made everything worse. Not the missing people, not the road itself, but the fact that something could return from it, empty. I was standing in the ranger office when the report landed on my desk. A routine case at first. Just another lost vehicle complaint from the forest edge zone. But then I saw the details. Vehicle found. Engine still warm, doors locked from inside. No driver. Location. The same road that appeared overnight. The road that shouldn't exist. My fingers stopped moving before I even finished reading. Because I already knew where this was going. Or maybe where it was taking us. Rafik didn't come to work that day. No call, no message, nothing. That silence sat heavier than anything else. I kept thinking about the last moment I saw him, standing near that floating sign, his name written under the arrow like a warning that had already been decided. Engineer confirmed. I told myself he probably just took leave. But I didn't believe it. Not really. Because deep down, I knew the forest doesn't release things once it notices you. It only replaces them. 2 days later, the second report arrived. Another vehicle. Same road. Same condition. Empty. But this time, there was something new written in the log. Security footage recovered. That changed everything. I requested access immediately. They sent me a corrupted file. Still it played. The camera showed a forest patrol jeep entering the road. 2 men inside. Their faces were unclear at first, like the footage was struggling to remember them. But I knew one of them. Rafik. He was driving. Alive. At least at the start. The road looked normal in the video, just asphalt cutting through dense trees. But the trees weren't stable. They kept shifting slightly between frames, like they were breathing. Then the Jeep passed a sign, and I leaned closer, because the sign moved. Not in space, in meaning. The arrow flipped direction every time the camera blinked. Left, right, forward, back, like it couldn't decide what escape meant. Rafik slowed the Jeep in the video. He pointed at something off-screen. Then the second man turned, his partner, I guess. He looked confused. That's when the audio finally kicked in. A faint voice under static. Not from inside the Jeep. From everywhere. Continue. The Jeep obeyed. It kept moving. And the road changed again. The asphalt stretched longer than it should have. Distances became wrong. Trees started repeating in patterns like copies of the same memory. Rafik turned to speak, but his words didn't come out clearly. Instead, the audio replaced them with something else. A sentence that didn't match his lips. We already left. I froze, because his mouth hadn't said that. Something else had used his voice. The second man reached for the radio, but the radio was already on, playing their conversation before they spoke it, predicting them, or remembering them. Then the camera flickered, just once, and the road outside changed. The forest bent inward like a throat closing. The Jeep kept driving anyway, even though the destination had vanished. Rafik stopped the vehicle. For the first time, the engine sound cut off. Complete silence. Too complete. The kind of silence that feels staged. He stepped out of the Jeep. The second man followed. And that's when I noticed something wrong with the ground. There were tire tracks. Thousands of them. Layered over each other. Like this exact moment had happened many times before. Rafik looked down at them, then looked up. And for a second, just a second, he looked directly into the camera. Not into the forest. Into me. Like he knew I was watching. Then he said something that didn't belong in the recording. Something I was never supposed to hear. Don't come here alone. The screen glitched hard, and the video jumped. Now the Jeep was empty, parked neatly on the side of the road. Doors closed, engine still warm, just like the report said. But the people were gone. No struggle, no sound, no trace. Only the empty seats, still facing forward, still waiting, like they had simply exited reality without permission. I stopped the playback. My hands were shaking because I realized something I didn't want to accept. No one was being taken. They were being removed. That night, I drove to the edge of the forest alone. I shouldn't have. Every protocol said wait for backup, wait for investigation clearance, wait for confirmation. But I couldn't wait anymore, because something worse had started happening. The reports were increasing. More vehicles, more missing drivers, and every single one had last been seen on the same road. The road that appears only when it wants something. I parked my Jeep before the tree line, and for a moment, everything looked normal. Too normal. That's when I noticed the first abandoned vehicle. Right on the edge. My stomach tightened. It was Rafik's Jeep. I knew it instantly. Same dent on the left door, same cracked mirror, same dust pattern I remembered. The engine was off, but the hood was warm, like it had just arrived. I stepped closer slowly. My boots pressed into wet soil. And then I saw something inside the windshield. A reflection. Not mine. Rafik, sitting in the driver's seat, looking straight ahead, unblinking. I froze. My breath stopped completely. Then I blinked, and he was gone. Only the empty seat remained again. But this time, the seatbelt was still fastened. From the inside, a sound came from deeper in the forest. A car engine starting, then stopping, then starting again, like something was learning how to imitate life. I turned toward the road and saw it clearly now. The entrance wasn't hidden anymore. The road was fully visible, fresh, waiting, and every sign along it had changed again. Now they all pointed inward, not like directions, like invitations. Then my radio turned on by itself. No static this time, just a calm voice. Close, personal, familiar. It said my name, and then added something I wasn't prepared for. You're next to return. I looked down at my Jeep, and for the first time, I noticed the engine was already warm. Even though I hadn't started it, I didn't realize I was already driving inside it. That's the first truth I understood too late. The second truth came a few minutes later when I tried to turn back, and the road behind me was gone. Not blocked, not hidden, gone. Just forest where the road had been seconds ago, like it had never existed in the first place. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, so hard my fingers went numb. The engine was still warm, too warm, like it had memory of being used recently by someone else, or something else. I told myself I would stop at the next clearing, report everything properly, call in backup. But every mile forward felt like the road was thinking for me, not pulling me, deciding me. The forest edge zone should have ended 20 kilometers back. I knew the boundary maps by heart, but the trees here didn't behave like boundaries. They behaved like walls pretending to be depth. And the road didn't feel like it was going forward anymore. It felt like it was going inward. Then I saw the first sign. Same yellow metal, same clean arrow, but it wasn't planted on the ground. It was hanging between two trees. No pole, no support, just floating there like the forest had decided direction, didn't need physics anymore. The arrow pointed straight ahead. I didn't trust it. I slowed down. The sign reacted instantly. It rotated slightly, following me. I stopped the Jeep. The forest went quiet in a way that felt intentional. Not natural quiet. Observed quiet. Like something had just turned its attention fully toward me. My radio crackled. I didn't touch it. A voice came through anyway. Soft, familiar in a way that made my stomach tight. Continue. I whispered, "Who is this?" No answer. Only static breathing back at me. I stepped out. The ground was wrong the moment my boots touched it. Not unstable. Not soft. Wrong in structure. Like the soil had been layered over something older that still remembered how to move. The wind shifted, and all the signs along the road turned at the same time. Every single arrow, pointing in one direction now. Deeper, always deeper. I walked closer to the floating sign. The metal was cold, but not normal cold. It felt like temperature with intention, like it knew my skin. I touched it, and the arrow flickered. For 1 second, it showed something else. Not direction, a shape, a tunnel, a space that didn't belong in the forest. Then it snapped back to an arrow, pointing at me. Behind me, the Jeep radio turned on again. No static this time. A clear voice. My own voice. But not me speaking. I already went forward. I spun around. The Jeep was empty. Engine still running. Seat vibrating softly like something had just stood up inside it. I moved back fast. But the moment I reached the driver door, the road shifted. Not visually. Structurally. The entire ground under the Jeep rippled like a reflection, disturbed by something underneath it. The vehicle didn't move. It stayed where it was. But now it was parked in a slightly different angle, like it had been repositioned without permission from physics. I got back inside. That was my mistake, because once I closed the door, the sound outside changed. Not disappeared. Changed. The forest was no longer making wind sounds. It was making distant sounds, like something very large was moving far away and very close at the same time. I reversed. The wheels turned, but the road behind me didn't respond. Instead, the front of the road extended, like it was correcting my direction. I tried braking. The brakes worked, but the car didn't stop. It paused. There's a difference. A stop means control. A pause means waiting for permission. The Jeep started moving again on its own. Slow, smooth, certain. I slammed the steering wheel. Stop. The radio answered immediately. Wrong instruction. My blood went cold. The voice wasn't in the radio anymore. It was inside the cabin, behind my seat. I turned. Nothing there, but the air felt occupied, like something had just leaned back after speaking. The forest changed after that. Not visually dramatic. Subtle, too subtle. Trees started repeating. Same trunk patterns. Same broken branch shapes. Like I was passing through copies of the same memory instead of new space. I marked a tree with a scratch. 50 meters later, I saw the same scratch again. 50 meters after that again. The road wasn't looping. It was replicating. Then the sign appeared again. But this time, it was inside the windshield. On the glass. Not outside. Printed on the surface like it had always been there. The arrow pointed directly at my face. Under it, words formed slowly. Not carved. Not written. Emerging. You are inside the map now. I pressed the brakes again. This time the Jeep stopped. But the world didn't. The forest kept moving past me like I was standing still on a conveyor belt of reality. I opened the door, stepped out, and immediately realized something worse. There was no ground outside the Jeep. Only road, extending in all directions, like I was standing on a surface that had forgotten how to define edges. I looked back. The Jeep was gone. Not behind me. Not destroyed. Just no longer part of the structure. Like it had been removed from the system entirely. Then I heard footsteps. Behind me. I turned slowly. No one. But the sound continued, matching my movement. Every step I took echoed one step behind me. Perfect delay. Perfect imitation. I stopped. The sound stopped. I whispered, "Who's there?" The forest answered with my voice again. But this time, it wasn't repeating me. It was correcting me. Who arrived? I felt something shift inside my chest. Not fear alone. Recognition. Like I had been corrected before and didn't remember it. The signs began appearing again, but faster now. Every few seconds, another one formed midair, each pointing slightly differently, each adjusting as I moved, like a swarm trying to agree on what I should become. I ran. The road didn't react with resistance. It reacted with cooperation. It extended under my feet so I wouldn't fall. It guided me forward so I wouldn't stop. I wasn't escaping. I was being delivered. Then I saw the edge of the forest, or what should have been the edge. But it wasn't an exit. It was a threshold, a place where the trees stopped pretending to be trees. They stood too evenly spaced, too aware, and beyond them, no sky, just a pale surface, like a ceiling that forgot it was supposed to be above anything. The road ended there, but something else began. A reflection, not water, not glass, a mirrored version of everything I had been traveling through. And in that reflection, I saw myself standing at the beginning of the road, waiting, watching. My throat went dry, because I realized the worst part wasn't that I reached the end. It was that I had already been here before. The radio in my pocket turned on one final time, and the voice, calm, patient, almost relieved, spoke directly into me. Edge reached. A pause. Then, return cycle initiated. The reflection moved, but I didn't. And somewhere behind me, the forest started building a road back the other way.